7 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call of the board, please?
Supervisor Milkey,
Here.
Clerk Cody here, Treasurer Rice is excused, Trustee Bills
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Hauk,
Here.
Trustee Thering.
Thank you. We have agenda in front of us. I did send out an email today if anybody is inclined to make a motion regarding the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda under new business item G to have a brief discussion about the 2% application.
Second.
So just for clarity, the motion is to approve the agenda with the addition, correct?
I'm sorry, to approve the agenda with the addition of new business item G.
I still support that.
Discussion? Seeing no one coming forward, all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda with the one addition, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion to approve the agenda passes unanimously. Forgive me if my voice is a little weak tonight. Just the end of the day, I got a little scratchy. We actually have 2 presentations this evening. That's kind of exciting. And with that, I'm going to allow our manager to do an introduction he would like for Jennifer Hodges regarding the water and sewer capital improvement project funding.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. We do have, as the supervisor mentioned, 2 presentations tonight. The first one, water and sewer capital improvement project funding opportunities, that will be presented by Ms. Jennifer Hodges with Gordy Frazier. We are trying to expand our use of the virtual framework that we put into place. So we've asked Jennifer if she would be willing to make the presentation remotely. Jennifer's been with the organization in several capacities for a long time, so if things go south, we don't feel as bad. She might, but we don't, because we know Jennifer. So she'll, and the main point of the presentation is, you probably have heard over the last year or two, all these various state and federal programs that have been rolling out to provide funding for different things. So we just kind of want to take a few minutes and introduce you to those opportunities. So if you see in the future recommendations for certain projects to use certain types of funding, the type of funding won't be foreign to you. And so as we transition then to the remote, I think there's probably a couple things that Screen and Hazen have to do, but just bear with us a moment, and Jennifer should be speaking to us shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I turn the light up? There's like a...
I'm okay with it. Anybody object to the lights being down?
That one or both?
Well,
I don't know.
Probably the other one.
the other one, yeah, turn that one on. Thanks.
Yeah, there you
Is that better?
go. Yeah.
Jennifer, I bet you're thrilled you didn't have to make the trip. I know you wanted to see our smiling faces in person, but when you're available and Hazen's
Can
ready.
you guys hear me all right?
There we go.
Yes.
We can.
So is my face on a big screen over there?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, that makes up for it. No, I appreciate the introduction. I guess, Mr. Supervisor, for some formalities, because we do want to kind of have this to be engaging and back and forth. Do you want to hold questions to the end, if anybody has any, or do you want to allow for them throughout the presentation? I will leave it to your judgment.
Unless there are objections from the trustees, I prefer they take notes of their questions, and we'll do it all at the end.
Yes.
We have, sounds unanimous on that, so.
So, excellent. So do I have the ability to do the share screen and bring up the PowerPoint myself, I'm assuming?
You should.
Okay, thank you. saying it's disabled.
Okay, try now.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now, let's just make sure I pick the first one. Okay.
And we see your presentation.
Oh, wonderful. We love it when technology works as it's supposed to. No, thank you, Mark, for that wonderful introduction. Yes, I guess a little background, and I was at one of your township board meetings not that long ago to meet some of you that I haven't before and reintroduce myself to those that I have met. Gordy Fraser has worked in the capacity primarily with the township with utilities and the DPW for going on almost over 40 years now. So we've had a very long, fruitful relationship, and it's been quite an honor to continue in that capacity. Myself personally, I'm going on 19 years with Gordy Fraser, and have worked in many, wearing many hats to the point where I've been out there testing concrete, working on design, and now continuing to work on design, but more in a managerial role. So, but correct, Mark, I'm really not going anywhere. I'm probably going to be working for at least another 20 years. So, but with that being said, as your engineer, a lot of our responsibility is not solely limited to design, but we are also looking for financial opportunities that may present themselves to help finance these projects. Because as we're finding with inflation and materials and a lot of new challenges, we're constantly looking for new funding sources. And we have been successful over the years, just keeping our boots on the ground and monitoring that. And so it is really exciting to be able to have this opportunity tonight to talk about some potential, not only your capital improvement projects, but some potential funding opportunities. And moving on to the first slide. So what we have here, and I know a lot of you have heard discussions about it related to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and some of the ARPA money, but historically, the feds, the state, even local levels do provide funding sources for infrastructure. And conventionally for Charter Township of Union, Eagle, through their drinking water or clean water revolving fund, has been an avenue for the township to use for funding sources. We haven't gone through that route. Historically, the township has been very fortunate to be able to use their own water and sewer funds, but that has been an avenue that a lot of municipalities do take advantage of. And historically, through Eagle, which is state money, with some federal appropriations, you know, on average, through drinking water, they may have up to $200 million they can capture, and through clean water, they may have $800 million. And you guys are going to hear a couple of different acronyms thrown around, one being DWSRF, which is drinking water, and the other one being clean water SRF. And it's a misnomer, but clean water relates to sewer infrastructure, and drinking water relates to potable water infrastructure, just for some clarification. But as of recent, with some of the federal funding that's been put in place coming out of with COVID relief money, this Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that the feds passed back in November of 2021, it was in their decision-making that through Eagle, through the states, each state locally, that's where they wanted to appropriate that money. So that's why a big reason why we're here tonight talking to you guys is because not only with traditional Eagle loan, the feds have provided additional opportunities for not only loan, but substantial avenues to access and grant money through Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act and then through the ARPA. And so what the spreadsheet that you're seeing in front of you just kind of demonstrates some of the money, real money that we're talking about through ARP, which is a new release, that's the Act 53. On the water side, they're providing $600 million additional loan money, and on the sewer side, $400 million. Through the Infrastructure Act, they've broken it up into 3 different categories, one related to general infrastructure, one targeted to address contamination such as PFAS, and then the third category is related to lead service lines. And what's exciting about that is it's not just limited to loan, but they've also put it into categories which they call loan forgiveness, but we term it as grant money. So it's definitely a unique opportunity for all the municipalities in the state of Michigan have access to not only more loan money, but definitely access to grant money. And so that's why we are bringing it to your attention now, because it's money that they appropriated for people that applied to Eagle last year and this upcoming year. So it's pretty critical that we as a municipality, knowing we have potentially capital improvement projects, that we want to be within those funding realms and put in an application to see our chances of getting access to not only loan, but possibly some additional grant money. Those smaller little blocks that you see down below are just excerpts out of Eagle's website. The application itself, just with anything else, looking for loans, they have criteria and scoring systems they go through. A lot of it, they look at population, the median household income of the community, what the type of projects are, because some are slated towards addressing capacity issues, lead service line contamination, as I had cited before. And matter of compliance, if you are out of compliance with Eagle and have been issued, violations or consent orders, that also puts you higher up in the rankings too. So those are some things that we definitely take into consideration when we make application, and that's what they go through and review. Moving on to the next slide, just in general, for your purposes, for Charter Township Union, possible funding sources that are available to you guys. The first two we just talked about, clean water and drinking water revolving funds. And so that kind of just providing you a high level of what the terms are, the interest rates, the pros and cons, and kind of timeline. And so going through those, they do offer the ability for loans, 20 and 30 year, and then accordingly the interest rates that correspond with those. And that is what's appealing to us at this moment, is looking at the interest rates through these Eagle loans. Is over a 20-year course, you're locked in at 1.875. 30-year, you're locked in at 2.25. And the pros, as we just talked about a minute ago, there is avenues to access grants. It is a low interest loan. Some of the cons that potentially could be considered through the state, with any funding that you get through the state, they do require you to comply with Davis-Bacon. And a new appropriation that came through this federal money too is what we coined phrase as BABA, but it deals with Build America. So in addition to American Iron and Steel Act, we also have to look and construct components that are truly built in America, unless you can demonstrate that you can't either find those or you have consistencies with other materials in your system to provide a variance. Going through, and then the other two columns on the right side just demonstrate your typical process that the township has access before, one being a low interest loan or bonding through the county. And as we've all been hearing, just with even mortgage interest rates, the Treasury raised interest rates again, 0.75%. And so probably the number I have on there right now, 4.5%, is outdated. It's probably closer to 5.5% right now. The nice thing is not competitive. It's really just related on your scoring credit rating. And there's no due dates, there's no timelines. It's purely you can fund as much as you need to or as little as you want to. And then on the far right side represents typically what the township has utilized, is going through your existing water and sewer fund balance. And so, and that's worked very well for us. We've been able to construct design projects as needed. And unfortunately, it is true though, there's a finite amount of funds available, and the more projects you add to it, it reduces your fund balance. It potentially could, accounting for these things, have impacts on your user rates. So in the grand scheme of things, going back to the purpose of this PowerPoint was just to really demonstrate there's a great opportunity through this Eagle Drinking Water and Clean Water Revolving Fund for us to access funds for large-scale projects at a great interest rate, and potentially opening the door for us to obtain some grant money to help fund these. And the biggest reason why the Fed's pushed a lot of this money through, it's intended, we're all seeing a lot of aged infrastructure. They're trying to help the states, municipalities, communities bridge the gap and the cost variances that we're seeing. Just alone the cost of living that we're seeing increases on is creating quite projects that can be quite unaffordable. And you guys are aware of that too. Some of the recent projects we put out for bid, we've entertained bidding it out again or having to scale back projects due to the exorbitant costs we're seeing. So it's definitely something that is important to us to want to continue to pursue. Moving on to the next slides. These just provide overviews, the next two just provide overviews of eligible projects. One under Drinking Water Revolving Funds, and it's just as it's intended, it's to address the environmental component, ensuring that we're providing quality quantity water to our customers, and avenues to improve pipes, our drinking water supply, our treatment supply. Also, the lead and copper rule compliance is a new thing that's come about in the last 5 years. And so this also provides a funding mechanism for municipalities to go in and provide the replacement of the lead service and galvanized lines that serve our customers. For the clean water, very similar situation. These are projects intended to be a proponent for communities to improve their facilities, address antiquated infrastructure and capacity issues related to non-point source, which has to do with watersheds, stormwater management, wastewater facilities, promoting green infrastructure, pump station, manhole dyeing, dye testing, whether that's I&I, slip lining pipes. So a lot of typical stuff that we've been continuing to foster and work on through our capital improvement plans. Just to give you a quick overview of the water system in general, it was started in 1986, and that was a project that Roy Fraser worked on along Pickard Road. And with roads, just like anything else, it's continued to expand to the point where we now have 4 storage tanks, a booster station, 3 different control valves, and a network of a little over 70 miles of water main. We provide pressures to about 10,000 residents, which equates to about 6,100 customers, a mix of residential, commercial, and industrial. Our supply itself, we have 7 drinking water wells that go through 3 different treatment facilities. Treatments comprised to remove iron, and then we provide chlorine for disinfection. Storage-wise, we have 3 different storage tanks, one ground one over in Isabella, and then the elevated tanks that you guys see driving along the road. And then the infrastructure. Majority of it on average is 8 and 12 inch and constructed of plastic. And that illustration on the right just kind of shows you just the overall pressure districts and the critical infrastructure that provides both our domestic and fire flow to all of our customers. On the sewer side, that was constructed a little bit earlier. However, it wasn't until early 2000s that the township actually made the investment to construct their own wastewater treatment facility. And that was when phase 1, which was at 1.2 million gallons over on River Road, was built, and then it was expanded and to duplicate capacity in 2009. And as far as the sewer system itself, it serves a similar amount of customer base, and we have 19 pump stations, a series of gravity enforced piping, and that runs throughout the township. And the treatment system itself is basically a mechanical plant incorporating biological through screening, filtration, and then UV disinfection as a surface water plant to the Chippewa River. As far as the customer supply and demands that we go through, I just wanted to provide some demographics for you for reference. Just wondering, what a typical customer uses in your system. On the water side, it's about 250 gallons per day, and then with a peaking factor of 2.25 to meet our max day, and then we provide available fire flow on average of about 1,500 GPM. On the sewer side, we are a little less than that. We're about 200 gallons per day per customer, but we don't have irrigation, so that accounts for a lot of that. And these are within industry standards. This is part of what we go through and work through. DPW staff continuing to monitor, making sure that the infrastructure with growth, using these projections and historical data, we can continue to provide both water and sewer to all of the residents to meet 5, 10, 20-year growth with the infrastructure we have. And that's part of what we look at, making sure that we have the capacity and the infrastructure can accommodate. On the background side, Township, you guys have, and I like that picture before, I should have highlighted that, I put that in there. It's one of my favorites. You are extremely fortunate to have the staff you have. They're extremely dedicated and extremely proactive with maintaining their infrastructure. It's quite remarkable and impressive. And to go along with that, I just wanted to kind of cite some things that they have to continue to do either on an annual, semi-annual, or 5-year basis to demonstrate to EGLE, to EPA, that they're continuing to provide quality water and sanitary sewer service to all their customers. So a lot of it, they're continuing to maintain an asset management plan. They're using that through GIS that they have in staff. We have a risk and resilience emergency response plan related to both water and sewer. And then on the water side, even on the sewer side too, that's where GFA has the ability to get involved in taking a look at those growth trends, making sure that our capacities of our infrastructure can meet existing and future demands. The township also goes through and implements consistently a rate study, and they utilize an outside company, utility, financial services to assist with that. And then the new mandate that I referenced before is the lead and copper rules. That's something that they had to go through and do a preliminary inventory a couple years ago, and then get on a plan to any that were identified, go through and replace all those lead service lines. So it's quite a process. Which leads us into capital improvement plans. That comes from that. It's a collaborative effort. The township does diligently at a minimum maintain a 5-year capital improvement plan for projects, identifying what the needs are and respective costs, and just a tentative timeline of when we want to implement those. And that's where a lot of the work that GFA has the pleasure to come in and assist on too, because a lot of those do require permits through the state of Michigan to implement. And on the water side, you see on the right, this is a clip of the projects that we're looking at that fall in category with the EGLE Drinking Water Revolving Fund loan/grant. They're consistent with what they will fund, and we just want to bring this to your attention of what those projects are that came out of that capital improvement plan and the costs associated. So specifically, a lot of it with the Isabella treatment plant, we're looking at doing an expansion, an additional water supply well. Currently, Gordy Fraser's working on your reliability study, which we have to have done by December of this year. There's some water main extensions, and then also we do have just under 500 water service lines that have been identified to either have been constructed of lead or galvanized, or they're unknown and further investigation is warranted. So these projects themselves have come out, like I said, out of the capital improvement plan. They've also come out of studies that we've done in the past and keeping track and an inventory of what those are. Similarly, we have a working list on the sewer side. And again, they're either to address aged infrastructure or specifically growth needs. And so that list comes out of the maintained capital improvement plan that the township staff have. Relevant to sewer, we have wastewater plant. We've got a couple screw pumps that are at their life expectancy that need to be replaced in the near future, in addition of a storage tank. And then we have a couple pump stations that have been on our list that need to be upgraded. And again, a lot of it to account for some additional growth, but also aged infrastructure. And these I won't go in, these are just for your purposes. They come out of, again, EGLE's literature related to the loan process itself, and is just demonstrating where some of the money comes from the EPA, from the feds. You can get a loan up to 30 years. The nice thing with this process is, and we'll show it at the end, is after the project's complete is when you start making payments, and it's actually up to 18 months after the project itself is complete. And a lot of these projects are a couple of years out, so realistically, for your perspective, you can anticipate looking at probably implementing a payment plan once these loans come to fruition is the end of 2027, realistically, for budgeting purposes to help you guys. And we're not looking at actually implementing a project until probably at the onset of 2024 with the timelines that have to take place with these. And this is very similar on the sewer side. They are both set up very comparable to each other, a little bit different timelines as far as when their funding quarters are, but the terms are the same. And then this last slide, what it kind of just provides you is an overall snapshot of going this route through the Eagle loan application. First process is with them identifying your capital improvement projects, which we have, and submitting to them what's called a notice of intent to apply. And that's a one-page document that needs to be submitted by November 1st, and it just puts you in queue with them. So they're aware that you have projects, and so they'll go through it, and then the next steps are setting up a pre-application meeting with you to go through your projects and making sure they want to, you'll work directly with their financial administrator that gets assigned to you, and then also your district engineer with Eagle too. So it's definitely a working relationship and partnership up front to make sure the projects we feel that are in line for these loans are actually fit their criteria. So it's kind of a vetting process. Once that gets through, typically the end of June of next year is when part of the, and I roll my eyes a little bit, part of the painful on my end, Eagle requires what's called a project plan. And so it's a very, very high detailed, in-depth report that has to be completed by your consultant, along with some aid from information from your auditor, your rate study analysis, definitely the DPW, of going to creating an engineering report. And so that report comprises of entire information on the demographics of the township, the need for the projects, flow data to demonstrate why you're doing these projects, looking at different scenarios and alternatives for potential projects that you've identified, impacts it'll have on rates. So it ends up being, for each one, because we'll have to do one for water and then a separate one for sewer, ultimately ends up probably being about a 40-page document with a lot of information. So those are kind of the next steps of what you would anticipate seeing from us after we go through the intent application, is working with Gordy Fraser to create this project plan. After Eagle has approved the project plan, then moving it on to the following months, we start working on plans and specs. And then ultimately what we want to get to is what Eagle calls an order of approval. So that's a couple months after the project plan's been submitted to them, they've approved it, and that's when Eagle identifies to you, this is your scoring criteria, this is how you did, and this is how much you're eligible for loan and how much you're eligible for grant. That's what we want to get to. And if those terms and conditions are acceptable to the township, ultimately contracts are drafted between both Eagle and Union Township, and a closing would take place a couple months thereafter. So you're a better part of 14 months to get to an approval process with them for the loan grant, and then realistically that's where 2024 kicks in, where you actually can have a project that you're underway for construction. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Jennifer. Trustee Bills, you have a question?
Yeah, if it's okay to ask questions right now.
Jennifer, you're hearing us, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, I am wondering how much of our sewer and water fees are available to pay for these funding priorities, and also what percentage that would be of the total project cost of your list.
I guess I'm not. So Kim can probably speak a little more to the user fees. The user fees themselves are evaluated every so often and do account and address capital improvement projects. They also factor in O&M costs and certain amounts of inflation. But for projects of this magnitude, going back to my previous slides, majority of these are in the millions of dollars to do them all at once. So the township doesn't have access to those amount of funds in their water and sewer currently to pay for them. And that's why we feel, us pursuing potentially these funding sources at such low interest rates and access to grants is a remarkable time to go through this, because it is kind of a finite period that we have. eligible last year and then going into this year. And it's uncertain, in uncertain future years, if the feds are gonna be providing any more funding for our infrastructure.
And
Correct.
I'll chime in here too, Jennifer.
Thank you, Kim.
So when we took a look at this presentation and the projects that we were thinking to submit under our intent to apply, we took projects from our current CIP, so capital improvement projects. So when we did our rate study in 2020 with UFS, those projects were included in that rate study. So to answer your question, we've accounted for these projects in our rate fees. Now, I will say, and I want to make a disclaimer, because a lot of costs have gone up dramatically since 2020 when we did that cost of service study. So Jennifer and I took the time to go through these projects that are on this list and update those costs. And as part of our project plan that we have to submit to Eagle for this funding, those new costs will be included, and we will work with, I imagine, UFS again, Dawn Lund, to make sure that we're in line with user fees, and, because we have to show that we can pay this money back. So these aren't new projects that we've come up with, these are all projects that we already had in the queue for the next few years, and felt because this money is at such a low rate, and the possibility of grants, no guarantee there, but it would be a good idea to apply for this money and see if we could get any of it funded through that. There's no guarantee that we'll get funded at all. There is a rating system, but our hope is that if not all of our projects, at least some of them would qualify and we could get funding for it, which ultimately, because of the lower rates and the possibility of grants, could save our users some money as far as rates in the long run.
I think it's a great report. Thank you so much, Jennifer and Kim and everybody else that worked on it. And I think that if we can submit, a request for money to cover these projects and get possible grant money to cover 49%, I think we'd be win-win all the way. Thank you very much.
Trustee Hauk?
Yeah, I don't know. When I look at it, I think one of the most important things is another new well. If you don't have water, you don't have a lot of,
Right, and that's a project we've been working on for a little bit.
Yeah.
We did a study, Gordy Fraser helped us with that late last year, that identified some possible locations.
I was just gonna ask if there are any sites.
And then we also recently, with the help of Gordy Fraser, Jennifer and I applied for a source water grant, which is a grant that will help us pay for some exploration for wells. We have been awarded that. It's a 50-50 match grant. You'll be seeing here shortly the grant or the contract with Eagle for that funding, so we can at least look at one of the sites and do some well testing and do some pump testing, put down some wells. So that is a project we've been working on, and that is a project that we've also put on this list to further that once we get through this step.
And then we have 7 wells now. Didn't we do one a couple of years ago?
We did a replacement well.
Yeah.
We did a replacement well at the Isabella site.
Yeah.
We have abandoned well number 1. We now have well number 11. So that was a replacement. It wasn't actually a new well. I mean, it is a new well, but as far as capacity, we did get a little bit more capacity from that well, but we are in need. We know that through our reliability studies that we are going to have a need for additional wells, and we will have to find a site for those.
That's another question I had is, our aging, I'm sure some of our wells are aging. They need to be replaced.
But we do maintenance each year.
Yeah.
We do go through and do maintenance, so, and we have re-drilled some of our wells. So our wells are in, fairly good shape, but you have to stay diligent on that, to make sure that we're keeping those up. And we do. You guys approve every year at least one well to get rehabbed. We clean it. We take a look at the well. We pull the wells, and make sure that everything is in good shape. We normally replace the pump and motor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, if you don't have water, you don't have life. So.
Trustee Brown?
Yes, I heard mentioned by Jennifer in the report about Eagle and maybe violations. do we have any violations right now through Eagle?
We
at
do
this time?
not. We will not be getting points for that.
Oh,
I mean, that's, it is, it
I
is.
know.
But I mean, I
Yeah.
heard that, and as far as points and how they,
Yeah.
it's something that you're doing bad and you're gonna get awarded for
It's
it.
frustrating.
It is very
Yeah.
frustrating. We go through this a lot. We have this discussion a lot. It's frustrating. We're a community. Union Township is always, you
Ahead of
know,
the game.
have taken care of their
Yeah.
assets, and the board is always very supportive of that. So we're not under violation, but when you go to try to get money from the state or the federal government, it's
You
almost,
don't need
it almost is, you know, it hurts you, but in the long run, we do what's right for our
Yeah.
users and our citizens, and that's clean water, getting, you know.
I think
there's a lot of-
integrity-
But we are
integrity is
currently
first.
not under any orders. We have no violations,
I am
so,
super happy to hear
Yeah.
that.
so we won't be getting points for that.
All right.
There's a lot of townships that can't afford the kind of stuff we have, so I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Thank
it's
you.
good that they get money.
I appreciate it. Thank
I,
you.
I just have one other question. Jennifer, you said that, it's all Davis-Bacon. So what if our own employees do stuff? Does that mean they have to be paid those rates then too?
No,
Okay,
It's just contractors.
it's, right, it's just related to contractors. It does not apply to professional services, nor does it apply to, staff either.
okay.
And one thing I did forget to mention, is, because I had, indicated, once we get through the notice of intent, you know, the next thing this board's gonna see is contracts for us to start working on the, engineering project plan, things like that. Once, you've started the process with Eagle, all expenses incurred related to it, are reimbursable. So things like, our fees related to the project plan, working with your rate consultant, things like that, they're costs that can be reimbursed should the township elect to not pay us through your water sewer fund and roll those into the loan. So things like that can be all factored in and part of the entire package. They cover costs related to studies.
Thank you. Davis-Bacon is federal prevailing wage.
Correct, yeah.
It's
Thank
fun.
you, Trustee Hout, for us that don't know that.
Well, it's
Yeah,
fun.
I'm sorry.
It's
No,
fun to
it-
pay that, I'll tell you.
Well, and we tend to cite it as a con because it does,
Yeah.
incur
Raises
extra costs, a lot of times 10 to 15% higher, than, you know, historically what you would see with contractors that don't pay their employees, the premium rates. Because you usually see it with contractors that are union more times than not.
Right.
Jennifer, this is Brian. So forgive me if I ask you a question on something that you answered and I just missed it. Regarding ARPA funds, is there any conflict from these funding sources on the use of ARPA funds to help with that, some of the costs incurred?
You mean the township's ARPA funds?
Correct.
No, there would not be any conflict.
Okay.
These loans don't require, like the conventional match, because what they're doing, it's a full loan, unless you elect to offset and compensate with some of your own funds. And whether that comes from your general
Well-
fund, ARPA, your water and sewer, that's to your liberty, how you wanna utilize it.
So for example, if we decided to pay for some of the initial costs of the intent process, some of the design process with ARPA funds, and you did indicate that that's reimbursable, is that a conflict with ARPA?
No, don't, because with your ARPA funds, absolutely not. It was originally slated for critical infrastructure, water, sewer, broadband. So absolutely, utilizing it for feasibility, upfront design, would be eligible.
Wonderful, thank you. So regarding the grant opportunities that may or may not exist with any of these loans, when is that grant awarded? So if we were awarded $5 million for Project X, and we were eligible for some forgiveness, when do we get that?
So, yeah, because I know I threw a lot of information at guys, so to simplify it, we submit a notice of intent to Eagle, by November 1st of this year, which is our intentions to do that. Saying we've got some projects, they're around X amount of dollars. Then during that, after that November 1st deadline, we start working on our project plan. And we have to get that into them by June 1st. June 1st for one, June 30th for another. That's why there's a little separation in timelines. After that, then Eagle looks through our entire project plans for both water and sewer, and they have about 3 months to provide their scoring and evaluation. And typically, we're gonna hear back from Eagle about the end of August, as far as how all the communities ranked. And it's a public document that they'll actually release on their website. So as soon as I get it, I'm sharing it with you guys. Because they just did it for those that applied last year. They just released it about a month ago. So that's when we'll hear, is this next August of 2023.
Okay, so in that case, any principal that you're paying interest on is less the grant really than in that case, right? Because at that point, you've not actually gone through the closing of the project.
Right, yeah, really, realistically, the only funds you've expended, if you elect, now you could approve me to start working on design of the project too, but you don't have to. I would encourage you to wait and to see how our scoring is in August.
Right.
So really, all you've spent during that time period is our cost to create the project plan.
Project plan, and my assumption, and help me out with this, my assumption in creating that project plan is some of that, and I doubt it's the majority, but some of that work brings us closer to doing these projects that were on our capital improvement plan to begin with, right?
Correct, and some of it, honestly, we've already been working on, whether we did it with past projects, like the water plant, or not the water plant, but the wastewater plants. We went down this funding avenue before, so we have some information on the demographics and what Eagle was looking for, so we can use some of that. And also, the work with the water reliability study we're currently doing has access to information that we need. So there's already some redundancies and information that, being your engineer of record, we already have access to and don't have to recreate.
Well, and then another thing that will come from that is, when you do the project plan, there's a lot of financial information that has to be part of that plan. And, so that will be updated, like our cost of service studies, some of that information will be updated. We'll be able to take information from that, some of it will be updated. And we did have projects that were slated to be bonded in 2024 for mainly the expansion of Isabella well site and the installation of filters, additional filters, source water, and an expanded iron removal. So that was a large project that would have to be bonded in 2024. If we can get that funded through this will be at a lower rate than what we would have to do through a conventional. So yes, there is information that will come from the project plan, whether we get funded or not, that we will be able to use.
Right,
Yeah.
that you would need to get to anyways, and that was really my question,
the
so
project
thank you.
plans are pretty detailed. We did that when we built the wastewater plant back in the early 1999, 2000, we did a project plan for SRF funding. And we were going to take the SRF funding. We went through the whole scenario with Eagle. At that time it was, I can't even remember what it was called back then, probably it was still DNR, I don't know. But anyhow, we went through the whole thing. We ended up not using the SRF funding because we ended up getting a better rate through rural development. But we used information from the project plan for that project, so it wasn't wasted information. And we're going to be able to use some of that information even today because there's a lot of background that has to go into this.
Awesome.
And Jennifer, I'd written about 4 or 5 more questions, but they've been answered through this process.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Trustees, any other comments, questions?
No.
Really appreciate you taking the time to come before the board. I'm thrilled that you get to be the very first official presentation that uses some form of technology besides just your face on the screen. So
Well, I'm honored, thank you, and I appreciate you guys accommodating that. My son had a football game, so.
Awesome.
I was
Oh.
able to be two places at once.
Well, good.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you,
Thank
nice
you.
presentation.
Thank you, very nice.
Well, appreciate your time, thank you so much. You guys have a good evening.
Thanks,
Thank you, you
Jennifer.
too.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
thank you,
fine. Thank
Trustee
you.
Hauk. All right, with that, that closes out item A. Did you have anything to add, manager, from that?
Just a couple finer points as part of the discussion. It was referenced that we had done a rate study back in 2020, and that educated the board on certain parameters, financial mostly related parameters that we need to stay in to remain in good standing. Things like debt coverage ratios, how much cash on hand you have, targeted levels of working capital, and all those things are related. And back in 2020, we had demonstrated or shown to you that our cash levels were, we weren't going to be able to do a certain amount of capital projects in 2024 without financing them. And that was because if we used all our own cash, we'd be outside of various financial parameters. And so it's not at all unusual. The township has done it before. They borrowed money, and it makes sense to borrow money. So I just wanted to put a finer point on that. So we do intend to apply. Don't know what will happen after that, but if we don't do at least step one, then we don't have much to look forward to down the road. The ARPA funds are not allowed to be used as a match for federal grants that require a match. And we kind of talked about that, and the loans and grants terms were being kind of used interchangeably at times, so I just wanted to make sure you were aware that, and these projects and this funding source don't require matches, okay, but you can't use federal money to match a federal grant.
That
That's
makes
all
sense.
that's saying. And then I think I'm right on this. In terms of these loan programs at the state level, you have to go through the process and you have to demonstrate ability to pay the loan. They may turn that into a grant, but they may not. So the grant piece of the loan/grant, it's always a loan first. You have to demonstrate ability to pay, and then I don't know what considerations they use to go, oh, we'll just turn this into a grant. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions from what manager just said? All right, with that, that'll move us to our second presentation, Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreation Authority, updates by the chair, Mr. John Zhang. Welcome.
And just by way of introduction, Mr. Zhang is the chairperson of the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreation Authority. He is a City of Mount Pleasant representative on that authority. We have, the township has one or two appointees to that authority as well. The authority came out of the work that the city and the township and the school did several years ago. The board then took various actions to create the authority, appointed members to the authority, and then the authority has been doing its work since late 2020, early 2021. So Mr. Zhang just wanted to have an opportunity to update the board on where the authority is on their work.
Thank you for allowing me time.
Should be. Hazen, we good with the sound?
We good with the sound? good now? Okay, thank you for allowing me time to update you on the progress of the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreation Authority that you helped to create. The authority, the MMARA, is the public authority developed to fund and operate a comprehensive indoor community aquatic center in Mount Pleasant. The authority was developed in partnership with the City of Mount Pleasant, Union Township, and the Mount Pleasant School Board, based on the initiative and development work provided by the Friends of the Mid-Michigan Aquatics. The geographic footprint for the Aquatic Authority is the school district boundaries. The sponsoring entities appointed members to serve on the rec board. Union Township appointed Stan Shingles and Allison Giudini. The city appointed me, John Zhang, and Judy Wagley, and the school board appointed Lisa Diaz-Seitzma. Two additional members, Mark Sansbury and Mike Huneman, were added by the Rec Authority Board. The Rec Authority Board also hired a consultant, Stu Isaacs, from the Isaac Group to help meet our goals and objectives. After visiting aquatic centers and researching aquatic facilities, we've developed a conceptual design that includes a 25-yard by 116-foot pool providing 13 lanes for lap swim and extensive community recreation programming and open swim. There will also be a separate warm water pool for senior exercise, physical therapy, swim lessons, and a comfortable place for small children. The Rec Authority has worked to design a facility that will reflect the ability to build the best possible facility within the constraints of a millage. That's approximately $21 million. And once built, the amenities will attract people and programs to make the facility self-sufficient. In other words, not rely on taxes in the future to operate and maintain the facility. To that end, we've developed operating budgets like maintenance, R&R budgets, staffing budgets, etc. And we're currently working to choose an architect firm to formalize the design and to cost the construction of the project. We've signed a letter of intent with the school district to acquire property from them for a building site located in Union Township. We still need to formalize the LOU in contract to iron out the particulars of that land transaction. We also need to work further with the township officials concerning the utility requirements, water, stormwater, sewage, and so on. The current plan is to have the Aquatic Center on the May 2023 ballot and let residents decide if they want an aquatic center. Most people say they definitely want a pool. The ballot question will determine if they're willing to pay for it. The ballot will be for $1 million. That's for a $100,000 home, that's $50 a year. For a $200,000 home, that's $100 a year. In return, the community will have a pool they want to have and a facility that will bring economic development, be an economic driver to bring millions of dollars to the community. In the coming months, the Rec Authority will be working with the community leaders and develop an education and communication program to disseminate more information about the Aquatic Center in preparation for the spring millage. Any questions I can answer for you?
Trustee Bills?
Oh, when would this be built, John?
It would be swimming in it theoretically at the end of 2020, or the end of the summer of 2026.
Okay.
Wow.
And will there be, I mean, this is crazy and everything, but is there gonna be concessions? Like, are you gonna like farm out the concession part and have that be an income driver too, or?
We haven't gotten into concessions yet because the main thrust of it is
Right.
is the Aquatic Center and the programs associated with the aquatics.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you, sir. Very nice.
There
Really
will
exciting.
be programs like swimming and lessons and things to bring people. And I suppose if you had a birthday party at the pool, you'd have a pizza party or whatever.
Is there a user fee associated with this facility?
There would be,
Mhm.
and it would be less for the participating areas than for those outside of that area.
Okay, great.
If I can follow up on the user fee, my understanding from some time ago when we set out on this venture was the user fees primarily were to intended to keep up with operations and management, whereas the proposed millage you talked about, I'm assuming has a lifetime associated with it, which is primarily for the capital project itself. Is that reasonable?
That's, the millage would be to have the pool built. It should be self-sufficient with the fees that are charged, or like if you had a swimming lesson, you have to pay for a swimming lesson, so on, those kind of things.
Right.
And that needs to be that way to avoid continuing to tax people just to run it. That's why there's a charge.
Excellent.
When would the millage start? Like if it's approved in 2023, does the millage start in 2023 to build a fund up, or what?
I was asked that question before and I forgot the answer, and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, but it would start, the millage would certainly start before the pool's open, because it would start the following tax period.
So maybe summer taxes or winter taxes of 23.
Right, well, I don't know, I just have a concern, like, my main concern with this is, you see a lot of them where they're built, they're nice facilities, and then you have to keep going back to the bank, you have to keep going back to the taxpayers to run the things. So I mean, Kalkaska, you know, Cadillac, there's two communities right there that were shut down because I think the Coliseum's still closed as far as their public swimming went, or their pool. That got drained because I remember seeing on TV they had problems with it and they couldn't afford to fix the pool.
And that's one of the things that this rec authority has been working on, to make sure that we make those plans to say, yes, there will be income sufficient to keep this thing going. Now, the size of our district, the township, it's a school district boundary, is helpful in itself. And then, of course, since it's going to be the biggest, the best, the only facility for quite a ways, there'll be others that come to it. It should be a place where things are held at that aquatic center. But that is an important part of it. It needs to be self-sufficient. And it needs to keep going because we're going to put a lot of money into building it.
And I think, personally, I think, when they built the ice rink, there's a ton of demand there, and I don't see that place going under.
That's privately funded. That was privately funded.
It's not going under.
Well, then there's
Their
no
user
taxes
fees are
going,
obviously, and their rents are,
there's no tax assessments
well,
going
but
through.
what I'm saying is,
I know what you're
there's
saying.
demand. There's a
Right.
lot of demand here.
Yeah, and that's up to the voters is what's being proposed.
Correct.
Which is the one thing I always liked about this project, is let the voters decide if they want to invest or not in this. I mean, on the other side of this, if you're successful and the community has this, I agree with one of your statements, which is this should be an economic driver, much like we see with Morey Courts and the ice rink and other assets that our community has. So that excites me from that perspective.
Yeah.
Excuse me, what was our dream location? Do you have a dream location of this facility?
Can you
Yes.
say?
Can you say or no?
Well,
And it's okay if you can't.
Yeah, I think we want to finish this
Transaction.
contract.
Yeah,
with-
not a problem. Not a
But
problem.
at least it's looking like along the Isabella Road corridor.
Okay,
Nice.
perfect. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much for being here.
Were there any other questions?
There was going to be a discussion about the 2%.
Later.
You say?
I don't know that you have to. You're welcome to.
I'm asking that because the rec authority is not, to submit a grant, you have to have, be an entity, like a government entity that has elected officials that do it. You appointed us, and so therefore we can't submit a grant application except through an entity like the township. And the township is going to submit an application on our behalf to the tribe. And while it's not one of yours directly, it kind of is yours indirectly because it's yours, the cities, and the school
Right.
districts. So if you like, I can stay for that. Mark can tell you about it.
It's not necessary that you
Yeah.
stay,
Yeah.
and that's at the end of the agenda. But I did want to mention the next formal action by the Board of Trustees. In order to borrow the money, the authority doesn't have any, I'll call it standing, to borrow money. They're brand new, they don't have any assets. So the plan is to develop a joint building authority between the city and the township, and that would be the formal entity that would go to the market, borrow the money, and then that authority would technically own the building and charge the authority rent in the amount of the debt service payments that would then come back to the authority to pay to service the loan. So I only say that, and that's been part of the plan all along. I only say that because that would be the last formal action of the Board of Trustees as it relates to this project writ large. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
John,
Thank you.
if you could tell them all, thank you for their hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate
There's
it.
a lot more than you think involved with this thing.
Yeah, you bet. Well,
Yeah.
we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you,
And
John.
let them know. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I can follow up on your last statement, when you said last step, is the building authority, as you stated it, is that something that would come before or after a potential millage request to the voters?
Well, that's a good question. It would not take long to stand up a building authority, the paperwork, the resolutions, all that kind of thing. The building authority, if the millage doesn't pass, there's no need to have a
Right.
building authority. At the same time, you may want to, the rec authority may want to have as many formal pillars, if you will, that exist to help sell the millage. If the joint building authority was created prior to the millage vote and the millage vote failed, the joint building authority would just simply cease to exist.
That's what I figured too,
So it
but
can go either way.
I just didn't know if they would want that commitment that there would be that authority to operate that prior to taking out
Right.
an election,
I've-
right? A May election.
Yeah, and maybe I've made
Really gonna take long.
an erroneous assumption that because the city council and the Union Township Board of Trustees voted to create the authority and appoint folks to the authority, I just assume that you'll vote to approve a building authority. And that might have been referenced in the articles of incorporation as well. But it is a vote of the respective bodies, and so irrespective of what you've voted in the past, if you didn't vote to create the building authority, this thing is over with.
Well, I would go on record saying if the voters decided by majority that's what they wanted, then it's my, in some ways, duty to support that. So I would be very supportive if that's what the voters decide.
Who pays for the election?
The whole point of the building authority is to insulate, isolate
Right.
the township and the city from financial, legal, technical liability. There'll be arguments that there's a moral obligation if the thing went upside down, but the legal documents would not require Township General Fund to start making debt service payments.
Trustee
I'm
House?
sorry.
No, that's good. Who pays for the election? Like, will we have to pay for?
The authority has the rec authority has the legal authority to levy a mill, and so they would be paying for that. Now, where
Where's
they
the
get their
gonna
money.
come from to pay?
You may recall that earlier this year, or maybe it was late last year, or sometime in 2021, the city and the township and the school district each voted and appropriated $10,000 each.
Oh, I thought it was 5.
That gave them $30,000 to start paying for some of these
Expensive.
consultant services that they need to get off the dime, so to speak,
Yeah.
because they didn't have any cash.
Seed money.
And then, as we'll get to later in the agenda, the 2% request that Township's making on behalf of the authority is to provide funding, because they need funding to operate. They're all a bunch of volunteers now. They're at the point where they need some professional project managers. Costs money to do that. So they're looking at 2% to try to raise that money. And they're also looking at fundraising efforts in the private sector to raise money to get them along the way. Because right now they don't have any product to charge money for to generate revenue.
When would that election be, like May what? Because maybe we won't have to send out as many absentee ballots.
It'd be an off season one, it'd be the second
May, I
Tuesday followed by the Monday.
I
I thought you said May.
It would
May.
be in May, it would have to be in May.
It'd be May of,
Yeah,
their
May.
plan
May
is May
May
of,
2nd.
I don't care what the exact date is, but the authority's plan is to go before the voters in May of 2023.
Is anybody else submitting a 2% request on their behalf that's in our consortium? Like the school board or the,
They're partners, none of the three entities are being, there's no request from the rec authority of any of our three entities for money right now. But they do need a facilitator to submit a 2% application. So I volunteer ourselves.
In my understanding, because I'd asked a similar question, both the school district and the city will be named in that. We're just the primary
requester?
requester.
Okay, I got it.
But all three entities, so that, I mean, one thing that I know the tribe likes to look at is, collaboration, right?
Right.
And so I would say it would be negligent of us to not list those other partners.
That's good.
We performed something similar when and this hasn't, the final product hasn't been brought to the board yet, but you may recall a Chippewa River Strategic Plan project.
Yeah.
And that was funded with 2% monies, but there's no entity to apply for that money, so we did, and then we just became a pass-through.
Got
The
it.
check was written to the township because they were awarded the grant, and then that money was paid to the consultant that the steering committee was working with.
Okay,
So, just a facilitation role.
cool.
Clerk Cody.
Is this like a Isabella County, Mount Pleasant school districts, or what kind of millage are they asking for?
State law limits the millage to 1 mil, for one. The authority geographic boundaries are the same boundaries as the school district.
So it'd be the Mount Pleasant Public School District then?
If you looked at a map, the boundaries of the school district are the boundaries of the authority. So all the voters within that authority, and there's some technicalities involved, but would need to approve that millage. The Mount Pleasant School District does not cover the entirety of the county. doesn't even cover the entirety of the township.
No, that's why I was asking if
Right.
it was just the Mount Pleasant School District, Isabella County, or, you know, Union Township.
It's the Mount
City.
Pleasant School District boundaries, whether they exist in Clare County, Isabella County, and there's a bit of the school district boundaries that I believe are in the county south of it.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I was just asking what the millage was for.
but I'm just trying to create the distinction when you say the Mount Pleasant School District, the county Mount Pleasant, it's, the county and the school district are not one and the same.
I said Isabella County, or Mount Pleasant Public School District, or the city of Mount Pleasant, Union Township, and the other person that partner with us, like those three entities together. I didn't know.
100% of the
Just the Mount Pleasant School District.
city is in the Mount Pleasant School District. 99% of the township is in the Mount Pleasant School District. So there is a pocket of the township that's not in the school district.
Yeah, correct.
So I don't think they're gonna vote on this issue.
No, they wouldn't if it was just Mount Pleasant Public Schools. That's why I asked the question.
Anything else on this? It's good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on, that brings us, we have no public hearings tonight, so that brings us to item 7 on the agenda, public comment. Public comment is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to speak to the public here in person, please, well, either way, however you address the public, state your name and address for the record. We do have the option for both in-person and or virtual. If you're wanting to address the public virtually using Zoom, whether it be a computer, tablet, a smartphone, whatever it is, make sure that you raise your hand, and to do that, you can use the reactions icon that's on your screen. Click the raise hand icon, and then at the appropriate time, you'll be recognized to speak. If you're dialing in via phone, please press *9, and that will notify staff here that you're raising your hand, and again, you'll be notified, or you'll be recognized in the order in which we're able to get to you. And with that, we'll open up public comment at 8:12 p.m. Do we have anybody that,
We have
Virtual?
nobody.
seeing no one coming forward, we'll close public comment at 8:13 p.m. As far as I know, no proposals for closed session tonight, so that takes us to item 9 on our agenda. Current list of boards and commissions, we'll have some discussion on that earlier or later. We have Planning Commission, EDA, Sidewalks, and ZBA updates by our Community and Economic Development Director. Wow, sorry if I messed that up. Mr. Rodney Nanny.
Thank you very much. I sometimes stumble over it myself, so I appreciate the time. So I'd like to start with our EDA board. They met on Tuesday, on the 20th, and they did their primary action was to pay some bills. They did approve the second payment on their major project for this year, which was the sidewalk projects on both Remus Road and here on South Lincoln Road. There is a balance remaining of about $66,000, and there's some punch list items remaining to take care of. And once those are taken care of, then we'll receive a final request for payment to take care of that remaining balance. So at this point, the bulk of the project is done. As I said, the punch list items are fairly straightforward, and we're just waiting for those to be completed. The other item the EDA board took care of was adopting their 2023 meeting schedule. The Planning Commission also met on Tuesday, on the 20th. They had several items on their agenda. We had a preliminary site plan application for a very nice project. Clint's Auto Body on South Mission Road is undertaking a significant expansion. And so this was the preliminary site plan. You can think of it as a concept plan approval, essentially. Not all the engineering is done, not all the details are taken care of, but so the Planning Commission approved the broad overview of the project, the general layout of things. There were some items that need to be taken care of for the final site plan. The second item on their agenda was a final site plan application. This is for Michael Engineering, which is a company over in our Enterprise Park, Industrial Park area on the east side. This is also for a significant expansion. It's a two-phase expansion project. So that project did receive final site plan approval. At this point, we'll be moving ahead towards a building permit very shortly. The third item on their agenda was a request from Mid-Michigan College for site plan approval of their athletic complex. This was the project that you saw just a little while ago with regards to rezoning the 3 lots that were not properly zoned for this facility. They did come to the Planning Commission requesting what's called a combined preliminary and final site plan approval. That's where they essentially take both steps and put them together in one. For all practical purposes, what we were looking at was a approval of the final site plan. So they have to meet the standards for both preliminary and final together. It's a challenge. It's a very difficult challenge to do that in one step. The key with any of these types of projects where they request this is that they've taken care of all the details, because that's really what's needed for final site plan approvals. All the details are in place, everything in engineering related is set, because once the final site plan approved, the next step is building permits and construction. In this case, unfortunately, there were some significant details that were not taken care of. The primary one was related to, primary two were related to the assistance that the County Drain Commissioner's Office provides to us. One was that this project included relocating a county drain. And unfortunately, as of the Friday before the Planning Commission, the project engineer had not yet applied for that approval. They had been in conversation with the Drain Commissioner's Office for some time, but had not actually taken the step to formally request an approval to relocate that drain. And that is a key item. It's a key standard for final site plan approval, that those outside agency approvals must be in place. Similarly, they also had not formally completed the process or actually applied for the County Drain Commissioner's Office review of stormwater management improvements that were needed for this project. They had again been talking informally, but had not actually taken the step to request approval and go through that process with their office. So those issues those items are issues that can affect the site design, and as I said, they are requirements for final site plan approval. So in the end, after substantial discussion with the applicant, the Planning Commission did approve only the preliminary site plan for the project. The applicant has submitted an updated final site plan, and that's currently under review and is expected to be on the Planning Commission's October meeting for final site plan approval. Planning Commission has also approved their scheduled meetings for 2023, and moving over to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals did not have a meeting in September. They do not have a meeting scheduled in October. We do have a few items that we expect may end up coming before them. A couple of projects that are in the building officials' hands, where it appears like there may be ultimately a request for a variance. So we'll see what comes for November and December, but at this point the Board of Appeals has not had a meeting. And the last item, Sidewalks and Pathways Prioritization Committee, they have a meeting scheduled for October 27th. And at that meeting they'll be looking more broadly. It's intended to be more of a long-range consideration of projects. They'll also be setting their schedule for next year and going forward from there. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Trustee Bills.
Great report, Mr. Nanny. I was just curious if you have any update on Bluegrass Road sidewalks, if they're due to be filled in and completed?
So we have a lot of sidewalk projects that are underway. Of course, we have the ones that we've done in the West EDA district. We have some private sidewalk projects that have been completed, including the Dunkin' Donuts Marathon gas station project. Those sidewalks are in. I'll come back to Bluegrass.
Yes, sir.
Coming to it. One other one that has been, we've been waiting for a long time is the Sam's Club filling station and the sidewalks along Encore Boulevard. That project is coming back to the Planning Commission. They had to make some changes to it to comply with changes in state rules related to where they can put their underground storage tanks. We expect the Planning Commission to review that in October. We don't expect any concern with the changes. And they will be then moving forward. We're expecting at this point they'll be moving forward that project in the spring. With regards to Bluegrass Road and East Broomfield Road, as we've talked, I think before, we've put our sidewalk projects in the hands of a new engineer. The transition from Grow Engineering, which did the initial work on those two roads dating back all the way to 2015 or so, they are still in the process of transferring files to Gordy Fraser. And once all that process is done, and it's getting close, they're working through at this point the paper files that are needed and exactly what needs to be transferred. Once that's done, then Gordy Fraser will begin the work of looking at each of these projects. They're also currently in the final process of completing engineering work, design work for the sidewalks here at the Township Hall and over in McDonald Park. So we have a number of projects, and you'll be seeing a number of sidewalk projects, I expect, in the recommended budget for next year. So with regards to Bluegrass and Broomfield, those are probably the hardest ones to complete. There has been a great deal of effort to try to get easements. Without success, it means that it's likely that we'll end up having to pay for easements or even go through a eminent domain process to get them. So we certainly will keep working on them. They're in the budget, but I don't expect those to be the first ones completed next year.
Thank you.
Trustee Howe, did you? Oh, so regarding the, was it Clint's Auto Body? Did I state that correctly? Is that the one that would be south of Deerfield on South Mission?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, I remember when he
On the hill.
basically opened that up. Yeah, okay. I needed more context than just the South Mission part.
Yeah.
Any other questions for our director? Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board member reports. Trustee Brown?
I did attend the Mount Pleasant City Commission meeting. I left my notes in my truck, but it was a very quick meeting, so I'm gonna try to remember everything here. Most of the meeting was about the old city dump and the PFAS levels and some shallow wells that were found around and the area. And there is a map online that shows this information from their I believe engineering department it was, and I can't remember their name, forgive me. They will be working with the state. The dump, I guess, was constructed in 1950, ran through early 70s, mid-70s, somewhere in there. A couple pipes were found going into the Chippewa River.
A couple of us remember that.
Yeah, sure do.
I remember
Sure
it.
do, I remember it. So they'll be working through some things there, and most of the meeting, it was only roughly an hour-long meeting, was concerning the city dump. And there was a presentation done on it, and what the next procedures. They'll be writing this report, turning it into the state and then Eagle, and the city will be working together, and they have been for years already, so there's quite a relationship there. So it'll be fun to just kind of follow that along. And also, and forgive me if I don't get this name right, but they did fill their vacant seat, and I believe it was Ryan Chapman? I'm sorry, I can't remember the last name. My first name was Ryan.
Okay, commission seat, correct?
Commission seat,
Yeah.
yes. But that was really the extent of the meeting. It was a pretty short meeting, in and out, but that's all I have on that.
That commission seat, I think, is just till the end of this year, correct?
I believe so.
Regarding you said shallow wells near the dump. So those are active shallow wells?
No, they were test wells, monitoring wells.
Okay.
For just, they found high levels of metals and PFAS in these,
So they're not drinking
It's
water
testing
wells where they
No,
need to be monitoring those for safety for
They're
the,
just, they're testing wells. They said one of the lucky things that for the city is there's no, and help me with this, Kim, the water veins, there's no deep water veins underneath this, the dump itself, so there's a lot of hard pan.
Right, it's probably under the bedrock.
Yeah, so it can't infiltrate through that bedrock, so there's a huge layer of that under the dump, which is a plus for the city. It's because there was no liners or anything, but it leached to the side and it leached out to the river, and that's the concerning part.
That's a big concern, yeah.
yeah.
So they're working,
That's awesome.
they're working their way through that right now, and
Good.
that'll help clean up the river.
Trustee Bills.
I attended the Isabella County Board of Commissioners meeting last week, and it was also a relatively short meeting. They approved their budget for 2023, and they also, the administrator gave another report, but anyway, also stated they're going to be having some meetings to try to look at doing their health insurance private funded, self-funded next year to save some money or change some things or something, but that was the only real thing that really I needed to bring to your attention. I thought that's an interesting way to go. They have a lot more employees, I think, than we do, but it's one way to explore reduction in cost. That's all.
Trustee Therian.
I do not have anything to report.
Mr. Nanny always steals the thunder, huh?
It's all good. No, he does a much better job, so I appreciate that.
Clerk Cody. Trustee Howe.
I went to 2 meetings since our last meeting. Last Wednesday night, I went to the Council of Governments meeting, very good meeting. They had a guy there from Election Source, the same guy that does our voting machines here from Dominion, well, our Dominion voting machines. The main topic of discussion was Proposal 2, and it was overwhelming in that room. Everybody wants to turn Proposal 2 down. One of the main things with Proposal 2 calls for 9 days of early voting.
Oh, yeah.
You have to staff your township hall 24 hours a day, 9 days prior to the election. And nobody can afford to do it. Where are you going to find the people to do it?
I thought that rule says that it only has to be one precinct in the county that's open for the 9 days.
This guy never said that.
It's on the ballot. It's not a rule right now.
No, I know, but it's the proposal. It's because they've been bantering this. I didn't mean. I'm sorry.
What?
Well, what they've been talking about on MTA is this for like the past 2 weeks, and on the email blog thingy, and a lot of the clerks are saying they can't afford it and everything like that. But also, people are saying that it only has to be done at the county clerk level.
That's not what they said the other night. They said every township hall. And all the township, there were a lot of township clerks that were there.
Well, there's townships that don't even have a hall.
What?
There's townships that don't have a hall.
Every township in this county has a hall.
No, I mean not here,
Oh.
but in the state.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, I don't want
they
to
don't. There's no way. for that
It's
to
not
be-
worth, I'm gonna just skip everything.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna go to, it's not worth arguing with. I'm gonna go to the road commission meeting that I attended last Thursday. They approved their 2023 budget. Couple interesting things. I'm not sure if anybody's been out to Carriage Lane, but Carriage Lane was maybe done. They were supposed to go out there the 26th, the week of the 26th, well, that's this week, and get it paved. So that was scheduled to be Monday, but I haven't been by there, and it rained Monday and
Yeah, it
Tuesday.
rained hard Monday.
So maybe it got done today, I'm not sure, but it was all ready to go. Vernon Road that got hit by the truck that was going down Vernon Road, down 127, and the track hoe that hit Vernon Road and took a big chunk of concrete out. That's scheduled to start Monday, October 3rd, blocking lanes and everything, and construction's supposed to be starting next Wednesday, the 5th. with a completion date of the 14th of October. They're going to start on Mission Road. They're going to do it in two-mile sections. They're going to start at Millbrook Road, come into the city limits, and then they'll start on the roundabout and go north. That's supposed to start next Monday too. I went down today, I called Mark when I was down there. I went down on Lincoln Road and Broomfield Road today, and as I stated in our last meeting, they had everything staged down there. They got, I don't know if you've been down there, Kim. It's amazing how much work they've gotten done in the last week now that they were able to get in there and do work. I mean, they had everything staged down there. Today when I went down there, they had so many pieces of equipment running. That project's looking really good. And then the only other thing that they talked about is their EMI rating, and EMI is your workman's comp rate. They were awarded the lowest EMI rating in the northern 38 counties in the state of Michigan, and apparently they had the lowest rate in the state of Michigan. So, and like 15 years ago, they had the highest rating. So they've really emphasized training of safety and everything. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to add. This morning, I believe it was at 9 o'clock. I
I don't
didn't
have
get
my
there.
notes or
I
anything.
didn't get there till about
so-
9:08. Long story, life happened this morning. But Clerk Cody, Manager Stuhldreyer, and myself attended an intergovernmental meeting. And it was a relatively short meeting. It was just under an hour, I think. Primary discussion was county with the sheriff's new proposed sheriff's facility. And I guess to summarize it is, you know, as everybody knows, the bids came in much higher than they were expecting. And so they're trying to figure out ways to finance that. And basically the gist of what I got was that the board will be proposing some kind of plan to the public in the near future. Sounds like they're getting closer to that. I don't know what that plan is. They offered some ideas, but obviously none of those are concrete at this point. You have anything else to add regarding that meeting, either of you?
No.
Did I misrepresent that, you think?
What did you say that was about? The jail?
Primarily, that was the primary discussion was.
They were trying to they're working on lowering the cost, is what they were doing.
Yeah, so they've had the sheriff go through and look at ways to bring down the cost of the building. An example given was different vendor for lockers for the employees was one of the areas. Apparently, it sounds like they maybe saw some cost reduction.
Like tens of thousands of cost reduction just for the lockers for the staff, yes, from a different vendor.
So I think our sheriff's been
That was
working
one
hard
thing.
at trying to bring those costs down. You know, the issue that they have is they're not ready to move forward completely yet because of the cost, and yet they want to get in now before costs go up further. But some places are not willing to necessarily lock in at the existing rate, right? But they're willing to lock in at a higher rate, anticipating potential increases. They did talk about potentially rehabilitating the existing facility, not for jail purposes or for the sheriff's facility, but for youth detention. And that is not something that they've taken action on. It's just in their discussion process at this point. I think I captured what I took from it. It was actually a pretty good discussion, I thought. With that, that moves us to item 10 on our consent agenda. Happy to entertain any motions, and I'm always curious who has warrants.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I had the warrants and everything looks good except for the pricing on nitrile gloves, which I pay maybe 35% of the cost we pay for those. It's ridiculous that you're getting price gouged by CNC. That's all I've got to say about that.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item A, new business. This is a second reading and potential adoption of the DTE Energy Gas Company franchise ordinance. We had this at our last meeting. DTE, Jonathan Wilson, I believe, was the representative from DTE, was here presenting. Mr. Stuhldreher, do you have anything to add to this?
I do not, unless the board has any questions.
And with that, my assumption is the board is very familiar with this and ready to,
I'll make a motion to accept this, I'll make a motion to conduct a second reading for and to adopt the new DTE Energy Company Gas Franchise Ordinance number 2205.
Support.
motion by Hauk, support by Brown. Further discussion? Don't all jump in at once. Seeing no discussion, for the public, just if you're watching at home, or here in audience, know this is actually the second time we've had this before us. By law, we have to go through that process. So the fact that we're having probably no debate on this shouldn't concern you, because we had that discussion at the last meeting. If you have interest in that, look at our old tapes of the last meeting. But again, last call for discussion. Seeing none, Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call on the motion to conduct a second reading and to adopt the new DTE Energy Company Gas Franchise Ordinance number 22-05?
Supervisor Melky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
all yeses.
Motion to conduct second reading and adopt the new DTE Energy Company franchise ordinance passes unanimously. That brings us to 11B on our agenda. This is a staff-produced recommendation. As you know, our ZBA term dates, as they're listed, technically, we try to keep those staggered. Is that actually part of our bylaws? Mr. Stuhldreher, do you know, for the ZBA?
It's either bylaws or state law or ordinance or combination of all.
Okay. In any event, the idea here is to try to keep this ZBA in a staggered appointment terms, which is a good idea in my perspective. But I'll let our manager introduce us if you have something to add.
Thank you, and there is paperwork on this in your packet that begins on page 34. This is action that would restore the staggered terms of the, I'll call them office holders, the appointees that sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Staggered terms are required under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. We're recommending that the term for Miss Brianne Mogenberg, and I apologize if I mispronounced her name, would be adjusted to end on 12/31 of 2023, and then also adjusting the term of the regular member, Mr. Brandon LaBelle, to end on December 31, 2024, and adjusting the terms of two vacant alternate positions so that one would end on December 31st, 2023, and the other on December 31st, 2024. This was this is to correct an error by the administration in our monitoring and properly documenting the original appointments. We've contacted both Mr. LaBelle and Ms. Mogenberg. They do not object to this extension, this change of the term that is right now in your matrix. These adjustments would not affect the terms of the other regular members that currently sit on the ZBA, occupied by Mr. Tyson, who's the chair, and Ms. Presnell, who's the vice chair. Both of their terms are still scheduled to expire at the end of this year. They would both be eligible for reappointment to a 3-year term if they decide to apply. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. It might be a little confusing, but
I will wait till discussion on this.
Clerk Cody?
No, I was gonna ask if you had a chance to reach out, and thank you for doing that. That's all I was
Oh.
gonna ask.
Questions or for our manager?
No?
I understand it was I'll say what I was gonna say now. I understand it's a clerical error, but knowing now what I didn't know before, I wouldn't have voted for Ms. Mogenberg to be on the board for that long. So I don't think I can be for it because of that, or unless we can reverse what we did before. That's where I'm at.
We can't do that. Can we?
No.
I
No.
don't think you can because, I mean,
Okay.
she's been sworn in at this point, and I think then the law comes into place as far as removal from appointed office, essentially. And there are ways to do that, but
There should be cause for that, though.
exactly.
What do you think?
And that's what the state law kind of states,
Yeah.
so.
May I?
Yes, you may. Clerk Cody?
Okay, so it's a year longer. How many ZBA meetings have been this year? One? Or it hasn't happened yet this year?
frankly, I can't recall if we had even one this year.
I don't even think we had one. There's
January.
January. So there was one meeting, which is great.
Right.
But, so she didn't even get a chance to do anything. So, I mean, we should at least give her the extra year to get a chance and see what it's like to be on a board. You know, because we might not have anything else this year. You don't know. But, I mean, we need to do this. It's a clerical thing that we must fix. Stagger the dates.
I hear you.
And
You know, this is
I
my
had
opinion.
discussion with staff that I would have probably approached this differently, that I wouldn't have named specific terms. I would have waited until, the problem with the current calendar is that it ends in December 31st, 2022. And I believe there's, correct me if I may get this wrong, four or five seats that all have that date.
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them?
It's listed, I just looked, all
Okay.
of them have that date.
So I probably would have taken the approach of, as we go through appointment process, appoint some to a 1-year term, some to a 2-year term, and some to a 3-year term to create that stagger. But what was being proposed to the board is to look at this option. And so here we are. Is it correct if, depending on the wishes of the board, Clerk Cody, that you had indicated that this needed to be individual roll call votes, is that correct? You indicated that in a meeting the other day.
Did anybody
No,
make
I
the
asked
motion?
if it needed to be in, just because
Okay.
it's a clerical issue, it doesn't, or, because we're not reappointing somebody, we don't have to. We're just extending the days.
Thanks for checking on that.
You just wait and do this and.
Yeah.
That was my
If
thoughts.
there's no
That's what
motion
I was
made,
thinking
then
too, because
there's no action that
then
can be made.
one of the terms will have been expired that we voted for.
Well, all of the terms, with the exception of, you just looked it up again, right? It's
All
of them, yeah,
all-
become expired. You know, and obviously that's,
Well, then they have to reapply.
correct. And
Well, they have to reapply anyway.
They don't have.
we do want to make sure, this has been
Yeah.
a tough board to fill. What I did learn is, and now correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe if needed, this may be a good solution for this board, is, right now we have no alternates either. So if no alternates show up, they're short a member. We are allowed to appoint a trustee, and I actually had some conversations with the clerk regarding this, that we could do that to help fill and ensure full boards for when they do meet, and with the idea that that trustee would only step in as an alternate when needed. And if we are ever able to find a citizen at large that's willing to serve on the ZBA, we can always pull that trustee back and fill it with that civil servant. So
If somebody applied,
if somebody applied
that'd
and,
be great.
yeah, which is ideal situation.
Sure.
But we do, according to state law, have you seen anything that counters that, Mr. Nanny? I'm doing fine. According to state law, we do have that ability to appoint a trustee, not the supervisor. I am unsure about the clerk and
It
the
says
treasurer.
trustee, so I don't know.
Well, we're all trustees.
It's a hard one to get somebody to.
It
I
is.
mean, I asked a couple of realtors, you know, because realtors know a lot of
They know a
the
lot of that, yeah.
zoning stuff and everything, and
They're busy making
they
money.
didn't want to touch it.
Yeah, I've continued to work on recruiting for this. I have 2 people that are, I mean, in hawing, but no commitment from them, so I don't want to promise anything regarding that either. But if we get in that position of not being able to fill the 5 seats plus the 2 alternates, we might want to consider seeing if a trustee could sit in to fill as an alternate. I don't know if you know how the alternates work on the ZBA, and this is slightly off from what we're doing, but basically you prepare for the meeting, you sit in the meeting, you do not vote or deliberate unless they're short of the full 5-person board.
Unless they don't have a quorum.
Oh, okay.
Oh, when I sat on the ZBA, we always had the alternate fill in for a missing board member.
And that's actually the case. It would normally be to have a full board, because you can't, ZBA can't act with only 3 members present, but they would have to act unanimously. And so it is always best to have a full 5-member board.
There's the difference between best practice and what, 3 people make a quorum, you can conduct business.
And I believe we also, I don't know if it's state law, this is just education time, I guess, for a minute. I don't know if it's state law or this was just practice that the township had. If you didn't have a full quorum, you could give the applicant the opportunity to say, I'll reschedule for the next meeting. Is that practice, or is that
It's good practice.
good practice? At least offer that, right?
I remember being on the ZBA and that happened.
But then
You know,
that's
we
a
didn't have
huge
enough.
delay too for the applicant.
But it is up to the applicant for that delay.
Because if
I
you
mean,
only have
they
3.
could choose to go before a 3-member person
Oh,
board
okay.
if they chose.
Oh.
If 3
All
showed
3
up,
have to vote yes,
gotcha.
though.
yes.
Right, yeah, for sure.
And I remember being on it, and there were only 4 of us, and they said, no, we want to wait till there's 5. So,
2 will fail.
yeah.
You have to have 3.
So,
Yeah.
So if this board wants to take any action or still has questions,
if there's no motion made, then it's a moot point.
That's fine.
all right. Unless there's objection from majority, I'm going to move on. So that takes us to item C, participation contract with Isabella County Road Commission for Broomfield Road. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you. And there's paperwork that begins on page 37 of your agenda packet, and we're asking the board to consider approval of a participation agreement with the Isabella County Road Commission for the reconstruction and upgrade of Broomfield Road. And bear with me a little bit because it may be a little confusing, but we have an existing project, right? And that existing project ends 500 feet east of Lincoln Road on Broomfield. This participation agreement is to call it a new project to start 500 feet east of Lincoln Road and continue east almost to Crawford, actually 500 feet west of Crawford. And Road Commission approached this, I think it makes a fair amount of sense. We already have a detour set up, we already have road closure, and this would create the opportunity to reconstruct this section of Broomfield, make it a Class A road. The project would include you remove all the existing asphalt, you'd be adding gravel to the base, you'd be adding thickness to the asphalt to 5 inches, which is what currently is 3, I believe. And that would make it a Class A road. We'd then have a Class A road from essentially Lincoln Road to Mission Road on Broomfield. The project would be split evenly between the township and the road commission, $250,000 each. The recommendation of the administration is to use ARPA funds to pay for that. I will say that I guess depending on maybe the board action tonight, there is a 2% request anticipated for an application of $170,000 to use 2% funding. If that came through, if it was awarded, Union Townships and the Road Commission share would be reduced to $165,000 from $250,000. I will point out also that as part of the improvement and the upgrade, that section would include 6.5 feet paved shoulders to the right of the white line. So I think that sums up the project pretty well.
Is that a
Be
full
happy to
mile?
answer any questions.
Is that a full mile?
No.
Or
No, it's just.
No.
No.
It's not for mine.
Or not a
It-
mile, but, it's about a quarter of a mile.
I doubt if it'd even be a half mile, but
So $500,000 for a quarter
quarter
mile.
mile.
Clerk Cody?
So the 2% would be to help the cost for the road commission and Union Township that we would be
Yes.
requesting?
Yeah.
Okay.
More on that, and maybe you said it and I misunderstood or just didn't hear it. If this board approves this, the road commission approves their side, do you know if they've approved their side already?
I do not.
Okay, but assuming that all comes to pass.
Kim says no.
Okay, thank you.
Your microphone's not there.
With regards to a 2% application, that would be a joint, from what you're saying, a joint application, correct? That's the intent?
Yes, and the application has actually been made. We can pull it back, but the road commission initiated the application on our behalf, so it looks to the 2% committee as if the road commission applied on our behalf. That shows their partnership. The application also shows then if awarded, 3 funding partners: Tribe, Road Commission, Union Township. Request is for $170,000. If awarded, that makes Road Commission and Township's share $165,000 each. I only state that as information at this point. the action by the board is to approve, the requested action is to approve the participation agreement, which assumes a $250,000 commitment on our part that we're recommending with ARPA funds.
Clerk Cody.
I want to make a motion.
And this is over half a mile. A mile is 5,000, what, 100 and,
280.
280,
That's
5,280.
okay.
But it's
So,
to pave the shoulders too.
yeah. It's over half a mile. It's closer to 3/4.
Ready? Oh, no.
Any other questions for our manager? I believe our clerk wants to make a motion, but I just check if there's other questions for our manager at this point. Clerk Cody?
I'll make a motion to approve the township participation contract with Isabella County Road Commission for the reconstruction and upgrade of Broomfield Road, 500 feet east of Lincoln Road to 500 feet west of Crawford Road to a Class A road in the amount of $250,000. Approve an associated budget amendment and authorize the township manager to sign said contract.
Support.
Motion by Cody, support by Brown. Discussion?
I love this.
6-foot lane on
Yeah.
each side. I love that.
Love
And the
it.
I'm
best-
very happy
Want
with
it.
The best
this,
part,
yes.
we're splitting the cost in the project.
We're splitting the cost, and we could be splitting it two other ways, correct? With the tribe also, which would be wonderful with the 2%
Yes.
grant.
If you remember on the rest of that Lincoln project, we had to pay for those shoulders.
Yes, we
So I
do.
was thrilled to see that, through whatever magic and negotiations between the township and the road commission, that was included in the pricing.
Perfect. I think it's a great plan.
And for the businesses and residents that live there, that closure of that corner is huge, because there's no other great way in.
No.
I give the road commission credit for continuing to try to keep Deerfield in good shape. But the fact that we can close something maybe once instead of twice over 2 years is a great deal too.
I think the extended shoulder will save people's lives because of bicyclists and joggers and things around campus. It's really important to have these safety measures built in.
If I can say one thing, how important it is, and I don't know how many people remember this from years ago. Taught school, was hit by a car, be just east of Putt Golf on the top of the hill on the south side of the road. They live back in that dirt road, long dirt drive, and I don't know if they still live there today, but I'll never remember it as a kid. She was hit there and killed. And it comes back to remind me in this motion, Lisa, you jumped in, and that's great. I would have jumped all over this motion just because of that incident right there. I'll never forget when I was a child of the person that passed away on that road. And now we get to do something about it. I think that is just magical, meant to be. Thank you.
Well, and then they're also gonna do Broomfield Road from Mission to Isabella Road too. So,
That's great. Roll call.
So, if I may, I covered this project with our manager briefly, because I was confused about something I had read. I took way too much time of our managers that I didn't need to. But one of the clarifications I got out of that is as you drive that stretch of road, you see the change in the pavement. And those that drive that, you know what I'm talking about. It's bad, and then all of a sudden it's not bad. Apparently that's just inside the city limits, so in some ways we're helping the city out here too.
Good.
but
Not
we
very
are
far.
paying.
Perfect.
But full disclosure, I thought the board should know that.
I think that's wonderful.
But we aren't paying anything either from Baseline, or from Mission to Isabella Road either. That's the city and the road commission that are doing that, and that's part of ours. And so,
Right.
kind of wash each other's,
There you go.
That's excellent.
work.
Community relations.
Right.
Heck yeah,
All right, our clerk is asking for
Can we
roll
vote?
call.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
do it.
Clerk Cody, roll call vote, please, on the motion to approve the contract with the Isabella County Road Commission for the portion of Broomfield just east of Lincoln there.
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hope,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
Motion to approve the contract with the road commission passes unanimously, if I counted correctly.
Yes.
All right, with that, I'll talk slowly for a minute, Trustee Thering.
Just go ahead.
That brings us to item 11D on our agenda, Policy Governance 4.0, Global Governance Management Connection. Mr. Stuhldreher, I'll let you have the floor on this one.
Thank you. This is the board's opportunity to review the board's own compliance with policy 4.0, which is titled Global Governance Management Connection. There's paperwork on page 41. Just read the policy briefly. It's not very long. The board's primary connection to the operational organization, its achievements and conduct will be through a chief executive officer titled Township Manager. However, because of the nature of the township government and its election of department heads and the titles of the township supervisor, township clerk, and township treasurer, policies of the board shall reflect the term township management team, intending the inclusion of the manager, supervisor, clerk, and treasurer within the scope of duties that are defined by law. In the event no person is designated the township manager, by law, the township supervisor is considered the chief executive officer for the development of the township budget. As is normal, there is a evaluation document in your packet that may assist you in your evaluations. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our manager regarding interpretation or anything? All right, so do you feel we're in compliance with this?
Yes.
Yea or nay?
Yep.
No opposition to that?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Therefore, I'm not gonna do number 2, which is just in case we're not in compliance. Why? Any improvements you'd like to see to the policy and or how it's implemented?
Nope.
No.
Do we need to learn or discuss anything differently to be able to live this more completely?
No.
Seems to be running smooth.
It's fine.
Running great.
Thanks.
I'm gonna add one thing. I wasn't sure which one to add this on. Let me see my notes. If you look on page 43 of your packet, there's 3 paragraphs there, which is the actual policy language. The last paragraph, a single sentence, says, in the event no person is designated township manager, the township supervisor is considered the chief executive officer, et cetera, et cetera. I was thinking we might want to change that because we do have, in the event something were to happen to our manager, whether it be, I'm not even going to speculate on stuff.
I don't think it needs to be changed. It says, in the event no person is designated. So I think it's fine the way it is.
Well,
Because there's
but
designated people. There's more
If
than
something were to
one.
happen to our manager, typically we might put in what we term as an acting township manager.
That's a designation.
Yeah.
We
There's
we would include that?
Yes.
Yeah, there's 2 of them.
It's not an appointed thing, it's just a designation.
Okay,
Because there's 2 people that are backups.
correct. And I wanted to make sure that that was clear to the people that read our policy, that
Oh.
the backups take on that full responsibility of the manager in the event something happens to the manager.
And then if Manager Stuhldreher were somehow deposed, then you'd be the CEO to have to designate that person, I believe. Wouldn't you?
The board would.
Right.
do
Oh,
that.
the
We
board
have-
would,
There'd probably
okay.
be an emergency meeting.
You already
Right.
have 2
Right.
people designated, then you got
That was my hope, because my skill set is not putting budgets together and.
Oh, come on.
You wouldn't be alone, it would just be, you'd facilitate.
Yeah.
Facilitate.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And for the sake of clarity, I do have a copy of the succession plan policy that you've approved in pertinent part for temporary change in manager leadership, illness, resignation, leave of absence, et cetera. the Board of Trustees shall, within 3 business days, appoint an interim manager according to the line of succession that's listed here. So your policy says that you
Have to.
shall. You can violate your own policy, but
Right,
I think it's,
looks good.
Yes, my only point was I was wanting to make sure this board interpreted township manager as also interim in the event that were to happen.
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Then I'm good.
Supervisor Milky.
Moving on to item 11E on our agenda, Policy Governance 4.1, Unity of Control. Mr. Stuhldreher, this is you again.
thank you. And page 45, you'll find the policy language in your evaluation form. I will read the policy. It's not very long. Policy states, only officially passed motions of the board are binding on the township manager. Accordingly, decisions or instructions of individual board members, officers, or committees are not binding on the township manager, except in rare instances when the board, you all, has specifically authorized such exercise of authority. In the case of board members or committees requesting information or assistance without board authorization, the township manager can refuse such requests that require, in the township manager's opinion, a material amount of staff time or funds or is disruptive. That's the extent of the policy wording in full, and again, you have your evaluation document. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you know the questions. Do you believe this board, or I should say, do you believe this board is in strict compliance with this policy?
Yes.
Yes, in fact, I'll just add that I've sat on not 3 boards, but 2 1/4, I guess. And of the 3, I think this board does the best job with that. I think we all understand our responsibilities, our borders, and I believe staff also understands their responsibilities and their borders, and I like how it's working right now. So we'll skip number 2 then. Any improvements to processes on this to be in full compliance?
No?
Anything we can do better to live by this policy more completely?
I think we are largely in compliance here. I think it's straightforward and we do a great job.
And this isn't an easy one to follow, I think.
No, I think we have to keep our eyes on it, hands around it. I mean, we
Right.
can't just, oh, we're doing great and that's it. I mean, I believe we gotta be diligent, for sure.
Well, it's not like we are all clambering into Manager Stuhldreher's office and saying, I want this, I want that. You know, we don't do that. So I think we're good.
Or
And I don't
other,
think
or
that-
other staff.
I do
officers, too.
sometimes.
Well, you do it. You
But
do
I
it.
need it.
Yeah, you do it from
There's a
as
big
department
difference.
head. But yeah, I mean,
Like help.
I'll say in the past there were a lot of instances where trustees would be sticking their nose where it was not constructive. Because if it's important enough, then the board would take that action to make sure something gets done versus an individual asking for specific needs.
Yes, sir.
Stops that rogue trustee.
I had to put it
Brown.
on my phone. I don't have the
I'm
next one.
teasing you, sorry. All right, without objection, then we'll move on.
Sounds good.
All right, that brings us to item F on our agenda. This is Township Manager 2023 Employment Contract Negotiations. Just for the public, we did go through a process of, I believe it was the previous 2 meetings, of reviewing our manager's performance. This board gave our manager high grades, and we have an annual contract with our manager, and it's that time of year where we begin to negotiate what 2023 looks like. And with that, I don't know, do you have anything you'd like to add, Mr. Stuhldreher?
Well, I will say that I did provide a copy of the existing employment agreement to the board members today. Y'all probably already had a copy. It was approved by you all last December, and it covered 2022 2. This discussion is required as noted in the employment agreement. And quote, in addition, consideration shall be given on an annual basis to an increase in compensation. Increased compensation can be in the form of a salary increase and/or a performance incentive and/or increase in benefits. And I just want to emphasize that the only that the shall pertains to consideration. So we just need to have a discussion. It doesn't require you to provide any change. And similar reference is made to in 4.5 of your policy governance document.
Thank you. Thank you. Clerk Cody?
Just wanted to say, I'm pulling up the email on my phone because my computer wouldn't work and I didn't have time to print it out, so I just wanted to know.
You're not playing with your phone?
I'm not playing
I'm
on my
sorry.
phone, I was trying to look up the email.
We did,
I have it right here.
I do have a couple extra copies if anybody'd
Yeah,
like
she
them
just gave me- you
of
want
the
one?
employment.
No, I have
agreement.
that, I have it right here.
I mean, I've got it up, but I'll just, for future reference. And
Brought 7.
Yeah.
Oh. Here, I'll straighten it up.
7. I'll take one.
Is it okay if I just come out and ask manager, what, have you given this some thought? Do you know what you would like to get from this discussion? For, monetary, increase or type of thing like that? Is there somewhere?
What's your current salary? I can't remember.
107,000.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not using my calculator.
That was a result of, I believe it was a 3% increase that you approved last December.
I can look it up. I have it
And I did have a chance to just Google the potential COLA adjustment for this year, which is gonna be around 8 to 9%. FYI, the interest rate, or the inflation rate's been crazy.
What did you think was fair, Mark? A percentage? Did you have a percentage in mind? Or is that inappropriate to ask that?
There's a couple things going on. It's a point of order maybe.
Thanks.
Trustee Bill has asked a question that I haven't had an opportunity to answer yet.
Okay, I'm sorry.
If you're allowing that to happen. So I don't know if I,
Yeah, let's get back
Should-
to, we'll come back.
related to your question, what am I looking for? I normally make it a policy to not negotiate against myself, which that's what I'd be doing if I go first. But I think you also know that I've always said that I'm compensated fairly and I enjoy working here, so I don't plan on making this thing, real complicated and involved. So in this instance, without setting a precedent for future years,
Duly noted.
and so, to answer your question directly, in the employment agreement that you all have, on page 3, under section vacation, sick, and personal leave, paragraph 2, y'all with me so far?
Yep.
Yep.
The second, I'll start with the second to the last sentence. It says, except as otherwise provided in this agreement, in the event Stool Drayer's employment is terminated, either voluntarily or involuntarily, Stool Drayer shall be compensated for all accrued, unused vacation and personal leave, period. Stool Drayer shall not be entitled to be compensated for accrued, unused sick leave. So if that last sentence was changed to stool drayer shall be entitled to be compensated for accrued unused sick leave. That's one thing I'm, in response to your question, that I'd be interested in.
Okay. All right.
And the other thing would be, you know, there's a car allowance that I have, $250 a month. If you wanted to add $50 to that, I'd be happy with that. That's $600 a year, or 0.56% of my salary. Those are the two things that I kind of was eyeballing. I will point out that elsewhere in the agreement, and in fact on the same page, the section above, it's item 3. Or I'm sorry, item 4. Township agrees to put in force and to make required premium payments for short-term disability coverage. And as much as my fault as anybody's, the township doesn't provide me with any short-term disability coverage.
We don't.
They haven't for the past 6 years. I never noticed it. So that would be a little bit more expensive. What the board would, and this is probably why, because none of the employees have short-term disability coverage. We have the sick leave, but not a short-term disability policy.
Wow.
And primarily because we're such a small workforce that it's hard to find somebody to offer an employer-provided benefit along those lines. Having said that, if we wanted to discuss correcting it or discuss removing it, since if it's in there, I probably should be insisting that I be provided it. Otherwise, let's just remove it. But a little bit of research would suggest that the monthly premium to provide that policy would cost the township between $170 and $220 a month, which is, you know, give or take $2,000 a year. So if you did want to provide that, now you're getting closer to 2% of $107,000. You know, I'm not receiving that in the form of cash, but I'm receiving it in the form of additional benefit. So those are the three things. I think two of them are fairly.
I have a quick question related to what you, if you were finished.
Yeah.
Follow up. How much sick leave does a person get to accrue in a year? And I know it says 480 hours or maximum to roll over. Right?
Right. So it's roughly a quarter of the year, if you figure 2,000 hours work per year.
No, roll over. Oh, I
Correct.
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I heard this
And
request.
how much do you accrue in a year?
Oh, that was
I
the question.
accrue 80 hours of sick leave per year.
Wow.
Okay. And that can be accrued year after year. Let's just assume we don't use it for the sake of the math. the maximum that could be rolled over if you just kept building the bank is 480 hours.
So it would be approximately around $25,000 payout then at the end of your term here if you had 480 hours accrued, right? Something like that, wouldn't it be?
Roughly. That's what I was thinking was in that neighborhood.
Well, we'd be so devastated by the loss, we wouldn't care about the 25 grand.
There's two things related to that in my mind. One, it's not a cash outlay today for the board.
Right.
And two, I mean, I don't abuse and use much sick time, but I use it. The chances of me having 480 hours of sick leave in the bank at termination, whether voluntary or involuntary, is not real high. Because I'm not the healthiest guy in the world either.
Thank you very much, sir.
You could also use sick time though. This is as a way of short-term disability, correct?
Yes.
It's not the same, but it's,
Right.
if you had accrued it, at least you would have something to, is that what would be used? If you had.
For all the employees, their effective short-term disability is their sick bank. And, depending on how you are, I guess everybody's a little different, but because it's the short-term disability, it, I think, works against your interest to abuse it.
Especially if you need it.
Right, and
Because you won't have it when you need it.
Right.
Right, and we do allow the ability to draw from the bank to give to someone else in need, correct? I think we've done that in the past.
We do. We're working on tightening up that policy a little bit, but you're right. There's the short-term disability policies would normally not kick in till you use all your leave time that you have in the bank anyways. Those are part of the policy languages. And so to use the benefit, you got to exhaust your sick leave.
well, that's not the way I've been familiar with it. It usually starts after the 6th business day in my history, but, and lasts for, I'm thinking, 61 days.
Yeah. We do have a long-term disability policy that we afford all the employees and myself. So this is just, if you don't have any sick leave, or even if you do, bridge that gap. And I'm not an expert. I don't know much about it. I was just looking for things that,
Yeah, that stick out. Thank you. I think one of these two.
Yep,
are-
Clerk Cody?
I got two things. So somebody fell and broke their arm and they can't work they don't get paid off? Like if they've been here for like 20 years, they don't get time off? Like
they get to use their sick bank and vacation bank.
They
Sure.
get 2 weeks a year.
That's still sad
Right,
though.
and
They
then you
don't
go on
get
disability.
temporary disability. I
Was
think
two.
that should be a thing. That's something everybody should think about.
It's expensive.
Another thing, but you work 20, 30 years for something, that's something, I don't know. Especially the people out there
I have
digging
no-
holes and stuff, man, they're risking their lives doing
If you're in
that.
serious illness, your sick bank isn't going to help you.
No.
Yeah,
and
true.
I've never worked
But-
for a company that gave me 2 weeks of sick time a year, ever. And I've been
So
working a
you
minute.
hope you get to your long-term disability so you can have some,
I do
what
got
normally is 2/3 of your income for some period of time.
2/3.
Yes.
Okay, one more thing. Is this something we can actually think about and bring to the next meeting and not act on right now? Because I got like a bunch of notes I wanted.
Absolutely. We also have the right for agreement if we want to go into closed
Right.
session,
Right.
if I read this correctly. Not that I'm suggesting that we need to.
It was a 3%
That would be
increase last
my-
year too.
Where's the,
at my discretion.
At your, oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Where's the disability
That
sentence?
clarification.
And I have no interest in going into
Okay.
closed
I
session
knew
to
that's
talk
how you
about
usually
that.
Right above the vacation, sick, and personal leave we were just talking about.
It's a
Something
line
the
5, or where am I?
2, 3, and 4.
I just wanted to circle it.
Something the board could consider
Okay.
is to maybe offer a school dryer 40 hours of sick leave.
I'm not gonna be down with that.
I'm just speaking.
Yes, sir.
You'll
He's
have
given
the opportunity
options.
in a minute. We have
Yes,
to
sir.
throw something out there so we can have discussion. Is that okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Rather than looking at short term, I would not necessarily propose that the sick leave be guaranteed payout, but it does offer something that if there was a need.
I mean, honestly, this says in his contract, the township agrees to put into force and make required premium payments. And we haven't even been doing this. So, I mean, that's something we should do at least, or something, or compensate him for something that we haven't been giving him. Is this wrong?
Repeat that, I'm sorry, I did not hear you say it.
So if you read number 4, if you read it, it says township agrees to put into force and to make required premium payments for short-term disability coverage for stool dryer. We should be already doing this, and this is a contract from back in the day. I mean, this should be compensated
Well,
for
if
or
this is what's in
something.
his contract, then we should.
I mean,
make
that's
that
something we
contract
just
correct.
overlooked and didn't see that we should
Oh.
fix,
Maybe I'll
you know?
risk. Let me just kind of repeat myself. The question was, what am I interested in? And I named 2 things.
Getting something that's in it.
The payout of the, whatever the sick bank is at termination was one thing I threw out there. Adding $50 a month to the car allowance was the other thing I threw out
600,
there.
yeah.
Both of those are quite de minimis. If the board was thinking that is too little, then I was just making the board aware that there is a short-term disability provision in my employment agreement today that isn't
Oh,
being provided. And so if you wanted to do something more, you know, that's something you can consider. I also said that we can remove it if we're going to do 2 things with that. We're either going to provide it or we're going to remove it. And I'm probably indifferent.
but I'm just saying, it's already in there and we agreed to it. It should be done. It's
Is
just,
that fair to have that discussion right
hey,
now?
just keep it
Because
in your
it's
mind
already
if you need to, because I'm just saying, we already agreed to this
I-
and
We're
signed it.
talking about next year's contract.
But
I like
we
working
didn't
here.
pay
I've
him.
never argued very hard about the annual package.
It's for the discussion, I'm not, I appreciate.
I am not
appreciate your
interested.
approach.
I am not
Oh.
interested. If you offer me a 5% raise, I'm gonna, in the course of negotiations, decline it.
I say a 3.5% increase and $50 more a week, or $50 more a month. That'd be right around 4,400. If we went a 3.5% increase.
And then,
Last year we gave them a 3.
What did our employees
So
get
that'd
And
be
this
then-
year?
30.
They didn't yet.
They didn't get a raise?
Should
they
we
didn't
ask
do it yet.
Our employees did?
Mark if
The
that's
negotiations
something
didn't happen
he's
yet,
interested in
right?
once we have our discussion.
That's like
What was
next
that,
month.
Gene?
Well, let's
It's
see what-
ultimately
what-
gonna be your
let's-
vote.
Let's see what we come up with and
50 what?
offer that package.
If
On his car allowance, you said?
$50.
I'm just writing down the options, I just.
If I understand right, the 3.5% would be a $3,756 increase if I did the math.
Right,
correct.
right.
Plus
The $600 be right around 4,400.
Okay,
And you're, just for clarity, the $50 for the car allowance.
Right. That's what he said that he
Yep,
would like,
right.
and I think he deserves it, you know.
In theory, I'm good with offering that at this point.
I would be.
Can you,
acceptable
can you,
offer.
I have other issues to talk about, but I mean,
what
as
is the
far as,
offer?
3.5% income increase and $50 a month for a car allowance.
Last year we offered 3%, or he accepted 3%.
And the year before that, we did the $250 a month for a car. I think in 2020,
yeah.
we did that.
part of that was in lieu of
Right.
raise.
Right.
I'm good with those for discussion.
How long are we gonna discuss
We,
this?
well,
Are we gonna let this
I just
go?
have a couple things.
Well, I think
We
Kim
do
should be
have
able
an
to
issue
talk about
with,
it too, you know.
you know, our manager represents the organization, and you know, all the employees should be all compensated appropriately, including our manager. But you also, everything starts at the top, right? And if none of the employees have short-term disability, I'm okay with the idea that was offered, that we just take that out, we lose the overhead associated with that.
Yep.
Maybe we compensate the manager for what that was intended to be.
I think it should be confiscated. It's
I
in his
would not
contract,
disagree
I
with
just,
that At all.
what?
I would not disagree with this statement.
Oh, I thought you said you did.
No, I do not disagree.
Because it should have been something we were paying for.
Yes, sir.
It should have been, yeah.
But
and
it's
that-
not a benefit. I mean, it's a benefit, but not unless you use it.
You still have to
Yeah,
pay
but
for it
the
even though
township
you
is
don't
paying for
use
it.
it.
So you're saying to pay him the premium plus the
Uh,
other?
well,
If-
You know, very often if you don't take a benefit, like health insurance, you might get a stipend.
Right.
I'm open to an idea, and I just want to throw this out there that,
Oh,
you know, if our manager's going to negotiate with staff, if he's getting a perk that they don't, I don't know, it seems weird to me.
Mm-hmm, I
So
agree.
you would be asking to remove that from the contract, but
In
we're
lieu
gonna
of that, right?
compensate, saying any sick leave accrued, you would be paid out.
No, I'm just
No,
saying
it's
we compensate with some form of stipend, whether that be 10% or 100% of what it would cost us to do this. We can agree as to what that is,
Okay.
that he should be compensated for not having that benefit. In fact, we could put it in the offer like that, saying if you're not gonna sign yourself up for short-term disability, which is what's happened at this point, right? You can take a stipend instead of it.
I think the trustees and the clerk, or everybody had the option to take a stipend when they had insurance, and it was, I think it was $1,000 stipend.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we can be whatever we decided we want it to be.
I was just throwing that.
I just felt
That's
since,
what we
since
did
this
for
has
the
been part of the
trustees, but-
package,
But he should
all
get compensated
along,
for it. I don't
either
think it's
we-
right.
Yeah, either we do it or we provide some other mechanism for compensating for the loss of that benefit.
When you say all along, how many years has this been in the contract?
How many what?
Years has this been in the contract
We're
since
talking
we
about this
started?
one, it's 1 year.
I've been employed 6 years,
And it's been in there for 6 years.
In a
6
couple
years,
months.
6 months.
Yes.
6 years
Okay,
July.
not 2 months.
Stipend. I'm with you.
I think it could be an annually, you know, I mean, I don't know, but you're gonna put in the contract that he gets an automatic stipend, wouldn't that just be, an increase? Would we just do that?
I'm suggesting either. I was offering those as ideas. We could just use monetary compensation, because I hate to just take something away without
He can
compensating.
get that or the stipend.
Or give our manager, you know, the menu.
That's a good
You can-
option. I'm
You
gonna
can
write that
take
down.
policy and the township will pay for that policy, or you can take a stipend of X%, whatever that is, 10 to 100%, your choice.
Yep, and I think it should be, you know, $200 then a month, and then that would be, and you wanna do an increase in salary on top of that?
To me, that was independent. I was okay with
Independent.
the
Well, the
trustee
re-
Hauk suggested.
The reason I say all this is because we don't have an accurate wage and salary study anymore. It's completely out the window. We don't know what anybody else is getting paid around this state anymore. We don't even have any clue. So it's really hard to decide on that. If I'm looking at his straight out salary, I'm thinking it's way too low, personally, for the kind of stuff he does. But at the same time, I have to think fiscally for the residents, citizens. Well, we do.
No, I'm agreeing with you 100%.
So, look, I'm just trying to work all this through, and that was a curveball, that STD, and also the sick leave. That's a lot of money. I was thinking more of a bonus, because that way we don't have to say that he got a certain amount of increase percentage, and then that also goes towards pension and unemployment and things like that, whatnot. So that's what I was thinking. That's where I'm at right now. I know I'm just trying to work through all this.
Could you clarify for me? You said bonus, which I understand. Were you suggesting that as a bonus replacing
Yes.
something? What? Would you just say it again?
Replacing a wage
Replacing the
increase.
wage increase,
I understand.
because that would
A flat rate.
do a few things. It's inevitably going to keep him closer to, so that we don't look like we're exorbitantly paying the manager some ridiculous salary. Well, it would look like that to a lot of people in the township. So, if they don't, if it's a bonus, that's a different thing. Bonuses are pretty much standard, So,
Thanks for clarifying.
Well, I'm on another board, I'm not gonna name the other board I'm on, but, I'm on many boards. But we just did that with a director for a facility, and, we just gave a nice bonus, and she was very happy.
Mhm.
And then there was no pay increase, it was just a bonus. Nothing, no other, same benefits and everything. But it was worth it to her. It was enticing,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess if I'd be open to that, I'd want to see that above the 3.5 that was proposed for salary, because that's something that accrues over time to a certain degree.
Now, he did say if you gave him 5, he'd decline.
I see your point. If I can make one other point, since we're just kind of having a general discussion on this, I have an issue a little bit with sick leave of up to 480 hours in one event. I don't have a problem as that being used as a compensation tool if there's certain termination. But there are ways that termination can happen, and I'm not suggesting our manager's even going to ever be involved in this, but if, let's say, the manager decided to embezzle a bunch of money, right? That type of compensation out of termination should not be allowed, in my mind. Because
Right.
that is a perk, and when you violate the trust of your office, those types of things go out the window as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I agree.
So that would be the only thing I want to make sure we would have, and I was looking through the termination process, language on that. See if that was specified. I didn't have a chance to see all that yet. Clerk Cody?
I'm trying to take notes so I can go over this later, but, okay, so you don't get long-term or short-term? Or you do get long? Or, but not short?
The company, the employer,
Everybody
Union Township,
Get long?
has a long-term
Okay.
disability policy offered to all of its employees,
Employees of it,
including me.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Termination happened without cause, you receive
You would receive it.
compensation.
I'm talking
If
about,
if it was just cause, you would, kind of like what we discussed about the 1.5 months per year, up to 12 months, should we?
right. Yeah.
That was,
Malfeasance or something like that,
Right.
would be the exception that I would want to have. And that's it.
I agree with all that. I can tell you exactly, can I tell you what I
Yep.
Sure,
propose?
please.
3.5%, $50 for the car allowance, and then just what we talked about the accrued sickness and written up like that, I mean, if he was gonna embezzle. And then $1,000 for each year when we eliminate this out of the contract for $6,000 bonus.
Can you say that last part again for me? I'm sorry.
$1,000 for each year that this was in the contract, $6,000 to get it out of the contract and make it fair to our manager. That's my proposal.
I like it. Doesn't matter fully what I like. Ultimately, we want to offer the manager something, and he can negotiate that. I'm open to the idea of a bonus. I don't know how that offer would go. Might be a great idea. But I agree it needs to be beyond probably what the salary increase would be, as far as, at least, because it's a one-time deal. There's no guarantee of it happening again. As far as justifying to the public, if we went with the 3.5, what you just proposed, I don't think I have any problem being able to articulate to the public that that was not more than generous.
It's below.
It's
below.
way below
Below
generous.
should
Right,
be.
and so, I mean, I don't have a issue having to articulate that if someone has an issue with it.
The wage at my office went, not my wage, but the wage I pay went up, because the government cuts us every year. But no, went up 50% in the last 3 years.
I just figured out what it would be. I mean, so if you went with the middle, so he said anywhere from 170 to 220 is how much it would cost. If you went with 200 times by 12 months, 6 years, that's $14,400 that we would have already paid.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you saying a $6,000 bonus just to get it out of there, that's a good thought.
For
as well.
We
$1,000 a
don't know what
year
the-
to get rid of
But I'm
the
just saying
We don't know what
short-term
the premium was
disability.
6 years ago either. We don't know.
That's
that.
why I went
Well,
with the middle.
Yeah, she just went with the middle, but, I
It's,
mean,
That's
because
not
he
the
said
middle.
from
That's-
170 to 220, that's kind of the middle.
Yeah, all right, close.
I think it's important for us, and I'm with the supervisor, when we say, well, if we're gonna give them short-term disability coverage, we almost have to do that with every employee
That's right.
every employee. So I think it's
That's
very
right.
important if the manager is agreeing with, let's take this, just take it out of the contract, and we can agree upon that now, we can give him some kind of
Compensation.
payment, or, and that's why I offered $1,000 a year. It's below maybe what it should
I'm
have,
just
but
writing down all
$1,000 a
the
year.
options, too.
For the 6 years that it was in the contract, eliminate that, get it out of the contract, do the 3.5% and $50 a month for the car allowance.
And I can make the argument that Township's actually saving money then,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
but it's also trying to correct a wrong,
All wrong.
and whether or not the manager sees that as acceptable or not.
Yeah.
He seemed to voice that was reasonable. I'm in support of what you
I mean,
proposed.
it would've been 14.
I don't think that's cool. To pay a premium for the past 6 years, that clause hasn't been brought up for the last 6 years. It was brought up last year or would have been dealt with. So, to pay somebody the premium for 6 years, I don't find that to be a cool thing to do at all. No, I can see this year, okay, but I cannot see for 6 years. That, to me, doesn't make any sense at all.
The other thing is you could say you
Or
prefer to keep it in the
Prefer to keep it.
Fine, then fine. Then let's look at it for all the employees. I think short-term disability is,
That makes absolutely no sense to spend $1 million then over, we have an agreement for us. Yeah. Get short-term for every employee of this company and see how much that's gonna cost.
it's gonna cost a
And then you
lot.
go tell our constituents why we did that.
Well,
I mean,
I also, I'm not the manager, and like I said, I've never worked for a job in 30 years that I had 10 days of sick leave a year, ever.
Oh, we're just throwing out options.
yeah.
We're not like
Right.
gonna do anything tonight. I'm writing everything down so I can kind of go over everything in my head. But just so you know, the premium for 1 year in the middle is 2,400. So saying the 6,000 isn't how much more. Especially adding the 3.5, $50 this, and I mean, I'm just saying, I'm throwing everything out there. I'm gonna write it down and look at what I think is best.
I would
In my
definitely-
opinion, is what I'm gonna do.
I would be interested in proposing to Manager Stool Dryer what Trustee Brown had just talked about. I would be interested in asking him if that would be something he would be interested in. The 3.5%, $50 car allowance, and the $6,000.
And he's
To
also,
remove the short-term disability.
I mean, he's
And you-
also
and you brought
listening.
up sure, thank you.
He's,
The other issue that Trustee Brown, just so we're clear, that I heard was allowing the vacation pay, but clarifying the language, not for malfeasance, et cetera, that type of.
That's correct.
Right. Just, so that was also part of it.
Yes, I would be interested in hearing his.
I mean, he's also listening to our conversation. So, I mean, he's gonna say, no, that's just, you can't do that. Or, I mean, he's gonna say, yeah, that's fine. But, I mean, just run it through your head and figure out your numbers, like, completely. Not tonight, because it's,
You know, manager's not.
3
asking-
hours into a meeting that where brains are starting to kind of.
Yeah, but the manager's not asking for a lot. He's
No,
not being
he was
greedy.
saying
He
maybe
was
3%.
In fact, was pretty clear that if we reached too high, that he would decline that.
Yeah, and he, I mean, he
So-
pretty much said either, you know, give it to me now because it's already in my contract, or maybe the $50 plus 2% is what he said. Is that what he said?
2%, that's what he was talking about for a raise.
Yeah, 2% raise,
Not
$50.
3.5% plus 6,000 plus $50 a month. He wasn't asking for that.
No, he said very little. We're just throwing out different options is all.
Okay, let me stop for just a minute. So we've had what I think is a lot of good discussion right in front of the person we're supposed to negotiate with. What I heard from our clerk is that you would like to let this sit
Yeah,
so
I
we
don't
can
want to
bring this
act on
back.
this right now.
Where is the rest of the board on that issue?
Fine.
Would you rather take some action tonight with what you've heard, or take the approach that our clerk is suggesting?
Just to sit would be fine. I would accept that, but I need to know what everybody's ideas are, because if we come back and we don't have anything in front of us, nor have we had any discussion, we're gonna be no better off. I
Right.
mean, that's why I said in the past, we should have
Well-
a work session on this, so that when we get down to tonight, we can get right down to the brass tacks, rather than back and forth, which is what he did not want last year, my impression.
Right.
And
No.
I'm very grateful that he
And the reason for
reeled
that
this
is,
in.
the reason
I
for that
also
is because
want-
he wasn't asking for much, and he said, I'm making you an offer, you guys shouldn't refuse, right? Just make it happen.
I mean, but either way, we gotta fix the verbiage, and everything else has to be brought to the board and all that. And I would like Treasurer Rice to have a say in this, because, you know,
That's a good point.
she's sick. She can't be here right now.
Trustee Hauk, where do you sit on this? Would you rather come back or further? I'm okay if we have further discussion on this.
I mean, does
Still.
it have to be done today?
I'm okay if we have further discussion next meeting,
Ouch.
but, I think we should make a decision next meeting. Last year,
Yeah.
we discussed it one meeting and voted on it the next. And we don't want it to drag out much longer.
Yeah, so.
Is that what you prefer?
That's what I prefer, that
Okay.
we maybe discuss it a little bit next meeting and make an action that night.
Okay, well, let's get as close as we can. I think what Trustee Therian says, to be able to make that proposal, we'll give ourselves the opportunity to let it gel, make sure that we've thought through everything, and then do that. So,
I have a proposal out, so I'm good. I can do it
You're
right
good.
now.
I could too.
I'm
I can
gonna
do it
vote
right
no
now.
if
I
anybody
could
votes
too, but
right
I want
now.
to
I'm
honor the
sorry.
board's.
Well, I think,
I just
Trustee
think
Bills, where are
Treasurer
you
Rice
at?
should
I
be-
think Lisa's right. We should let Kim's been here 6 years. She's been here with Mark
You
pretty
know.
much the whole time. So
Right.
she should be able to have her say in it.
Trustee Bills, where's your preference on this?
Preference of,
Trying to iron this out completely to an action tonight,
I'm
or?
outnumbered here. Way
That's okay.
outnumbered.
I
It's okay to be outnumbered, your
Yeah.
opinion still counts.
I just told you what I thought.
She's not
Okay.
ready to vote on it tonight.
Okay.
I'm not ready to
right
vote.
now.
Oh,
Yeah, and I said that too.
it's not gonna be what everybody
I said I could
likes,
too.
but.
And Trustee Brown said that, but I do like the idea of Kim having part of our treasurer being part of that decision. But we do have, I think Kim would trust us on this, but I'm hearing 3 trustees saying they would prefer,
I would just rather do it the next meeting, just because I would like the verbiage fixed and everything.
I'd say what I would,
yeah, let the manager jump here. Jump in. It's all yours.
The, if the board is able to coalesce around an offer that you could articulate tonight, and that's part of the the negotiation. I can consider that offer tonight and respond to it either by accepting it or giving you all a counter offer. What I would not like to see for all of your benefits is you have a lot of things going on that different board members have talked about, and what I don't want to get you all in a position of is, what are you going to, I don't want you talking about it during the next 2 weeks.
That's what we'd be doing too. I mean,
But
you have a lot of
You
negotiation
can't have that
going on
discussion,
over
you'd
the
be in violation of the Open Meetings Act. Okay?
Just wanna-
And I don't think we need to make it overly difficult. Everything I've heard, if you can coalesce around an offer, even if it takes a minute of discussion, more minutes of discussion, let's just do it now. I can, if you can get to that point where you coalesce around a offer that you make tonight to me, I think we can have this resolved after you turn it over to me in a matter of minutes.
I'll make a motion right now to give you $5,000 more next year. Total compensation.
That's not gonna get support, that's not gonna get
I know.
a vote.
The funny part is though, it's an add-on item. Nobody in the public knows we were even gonna talk about this. So I mean, what if somebody wanted
This
to
is
come in
not
and
an
watch
add-on
about it?
item, it's on the agenda to negotiate an employment agreement for the next year. What's an add-on item is the 2%,
Right.
which we haven't got to yet.
Oh my
Well, it does say
And-
discussion and action.
God. Okay, never mind, I'm tired.
And maybe I'll just, because
I'm gonna
I'll just
stop.
give you, I'll just give you a counter offer now. Okay?
yes. Please.
A 1% increase in pay, $50 more of car allowance a month, $1,000 payment. Do not call it a bonus. You're not allowed to give bonus to public officials. Public administrators call it something else. Don't call it a bonus. $1,000 to deal with that wasn't the purpose I brought it up as a whole short-term thing, but it's important to some of the members that you compensate for something that maybe should have happened and done. $1,000. Be done with that. And then 50% of the accrued sick leave at termination
Did you write that
except if the termination is with cause.
Agreed.
And I don't want to get into the dark debate about what cause means. Let the attorneys figure that out if it comes to be. So whatever you all would coalesce around, that's going to be my counter,
I like your counter.
which is a hell of a lot less money than you all are talking about.
Yes, it is.
So for clarity regarding the short term,
And we take
when you
it out
said
of the contract.
$1,000, could you describe again what you meant? Because what I heard
He
from you
said-
is different than what I've heard.
My original thing was payment of the unused sick leave bank at termination. It would have been at the existing rate of pay. And the 480 hours potentially, it's a lot of money. Let's make it 50%.
Yeah,
And
easy.
it addresses the other issue that you don't want to pay that if the termination is with cause. If it's with cause, I don't get paid the bank of sick leave that's in there. If it's without cause, to address the size of the money, 50% or whatever. So if there's 480 hours, there'd be 240 paid at the then rate of pay, as long as it's not with cause. 1% on the salary base, 50%, $50 on the car, and $1,000
One time.
to deal with past wrongs. And I don't consider it wrong, so.
I'm prepared to
That's
vote on
more
that.
than fair.
A one,
Clerk Cody?
Jesus. I had the whole thing in my head. Okay, so, I'm really tired. The short term, a $1,000 stipend in lieu of that and deleted out of the contract?
Yeah.
Is that how you could say it? Stipend?
Yes,
Is that
$1,000 one-time payment,
one-time stipend payment?
and you can remove the short-term disability from the
I'll do that.
contract.
Sir, you are more than fair.
And I,
Goes against everything in my core, because it just seems silly. But I've told you before, I like working here. I think I'm fairly compensated. There's a lot going on, and I can be greedy and I can probably defend it and you guys can offer it, but I don't think it's going to help the organization in the long run. So I'm going to counter with something less than you're talking about offering me.
and I take exception a little bit.
So do
I don't think our manager's being, I understand his perspective that he likes his job here. But fair is fair.
Yeah, it's also a tough job. Yeah.
The 107 is at the top. It's at the top end of the salary study range for the position. Adjusted, and they've been adjusted over the years, So I only say that because I don't.
Can we vote on it?
I would make one counter suggestion. That the $1,000 for what's been missed should be more.
I'll go 2.
But I'm okay with the 1%,
Yep.
and
And
I'm
the
okay,
50
I'm okay with the rest of that, but I think we can do a one-time payment to compensate for a wrong. And it doesn't have to be the full amount, not the $2,000 a year kind of thing.
2,000.
I'm good with that.
I'll make a motion, fine, okay?
Okay.
Ready? I'll make a motion to give the manager an increase of 1%, a $50 car allowance per month
Increase.
increase. Hold on, I'm writing. Thanks.
Qualification.
Yeah. Let's just-
A $2,000 stipend for I don't know.
A one-time $2,000 stipend.
A one-time $2,000 stipend and
For a contract
removal
adjustment.
of the number 4 in his contract, and to amend, wait, what number is it?
You're gonna get the paragraph and everything.
I'm looking.
Page 3.
Vacation, sick, personal leave.
Page 3, number
2.
4. And then, wait, which one's the sick leave one?
Oh,
Paragraph 2.
Sick leave.
Sick leave, Sunday.
And to change the sick leave to get a payout of 50% if not wrongful leave fired,
If not terminated with cause.
if not terminate with cause. Okay.
Which I have no reason to ever expect that.
Correct.
And so let's do it this way.
Where's that?
If, and this can bring in Kim Rice into it. So
Number 2.
if there's general agreement on what was just articulated, and we got good notes, we got the tape, I will take that and redline the agreement, because I accept it in principle. Then next week, next meeting with Kim Rice here, there'll be an action item with a marked up contract that follows what you just said.
With a roll call vote,
Okay.
because
And
it's
then
contract.
you don't have to vote on anything tonight, but there's
There you
general
go.
agreement.
Handshake.
So then you
Do-
take
do-
your
do-
With
motion
a
up.
contract,
Do the paperwork, and then Kim can bring in be part of that, because that will be a vote.
for minute's
Okay.
sake, what do we write as, okay, so instead of having a motion, my motion is
Table it till next.
tabled till tomorrow. Somebody second it.
Second, but table till next meeting.
Or table it to next meeting. So you can bring it back with
I'm
proper
willing to
wording.
table this, provided the manager is willing to do what we.
Tabled
we just
until next
articulated.
meeting.
My
Yeah.
assumption is you're willing to do that.
More than
so-
happy to.
All right.
And I'm good
Right.
with tabling.
So
Wait,
is
we have
there
a
a
motion on the
motion
floor.
I did a motion with all that, and then
I said
mo-
to
the
next
motion-
be second.
Yep, the
and
motion
Bill
is to table.
seconded it, and then to table it and
Bills.
for vote until
To table.
the following meeting.
So motion by Cody, support by Bills, to table this issue until our next meeting.
To table this motion.
Any further discussion on this?
Table this motion. No.
No.
All in
I'm
fa-
good.
all in favor of the motion to table this until our next meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now let's.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
We have our first guest in this crowd
I
in a while.
know.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That was a tough one.
All right,
This is
last
long.
item was not
I have to keep away.
on the agenda, but I
What?
just recently got an email
I got it.
indicating that the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe was having 2% roundtable discussions, and it happens to be tomorrow morning. And so in a meeting with our manager, I suggested that we put this on the agenda and he come prepared
Oh,
to share with what the administration has done so far regarding 2% applications. I'd like, since I'm going to plan on being there tomorrow, and our manager's going to plan on being there, and I believe 1 or 2 directors might be there. I can't speak on their behalf, but I think it's useful for all those that are going to represent Township tomorrow to listen to what the needs of the tribe are and articulate what the needs of the Township are, that we hear from the board on this. And so I wanted to re-review with us here together in discussion what projects we're looking at and what are our feelings, priorities, et cetera. Reasonable description?
Yes.
I know what he's gonna say,
Okay.
but I agree
So
with everything.
with that, I've
so
asked our
far.
manager to prepare and articulate the list. So with that, you have the floor.
So there are 4 current 2% grant applications, either in the works or that have been submitted. And you can pull back a submission, so your hands aren't tied. The first one was referenced a little earlier on behalf of Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreational Authority. There is a 2% grant application for a project director in the amount of $60,000 to support the rec authority. So that's one application. The second application is for $85,000 to help support the outdoor fitness court at McDonald Park that we're in the process of we've already approved that, so just reduce our prior commitment. $170,000, and that would be in partnership with Priority Health. Okay, and on that note, I am happy to announce I was going to make it manager comments, but we were notified yesterday of the award for the $30,000 from Priority Health.
That's great.
So that was part of the discussion the other day too. So, and then a 2% application in partnership with the Road Commission for the Broomfield Road, the Lincoln Crawford section that we just spoke about earlier tonight. That application is $170,000. And then we have an application in the amount of $165,000 in partnership with CMU to finish that, I call it the connector pathway from Deerfield up to Denison. So those are the four applications that are either been submitted or in the works of being put together.
It's 480,000.
And number 4, what was that again? I'm sorry, your last one?
Connector pathway from
Was that the side? The,
over by
okay.
the amendment and CMURC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Field.
Thank you.
Go ahead, manager.
So you have two that are pretty directly related to recreation.
Yeah.
One, we're more of a facilitator. One that is directly related to roads, and one that's directly related to pathways.
That's awesome.
Did we not have something in the works as far as Crawford Road with the pathway there from Pickard to River?
Yes, that's right here. Sorry, thank you. We are listed as a partner in a City of Mount Pleasant application related to the pathway. I'm going to call it north of Pickard, up Crawford to the Park and beyond. Actually, the whole project also is south of Pickard a bit. We're listed as a partner in that. It's their application. There's no I don't recall how much they are applying for. Their budget, project budget, in the application puts us, has us down for $350,000 of the $2 million project. That could be considered a moral commitment. It's not a legal commitment because there's no appropriation that's been made. So yes.
That's exciting.
I'm really happy about the road commission one, or the dual one. That makes me happy. All the other ones are great too.
Any thoughts, favorites?
My favorite's the road commission one.
Well, yeah, thanks, you.
I think they're all amazing. My favorite would be the one up to the Bark Park, but I mean, we already, as a board, we talked about that earlier this year. We're really excited about that. That's gonna be a great pathway. But all of these projects are really great and essential.
Yeah. The approach I take when I go is I try to listen to what they're wanting, because these council members will give you clues, what they're thinking, what their priorities are, and try to feed off of that and say, oh, you're interested in roads, well, we got the Broomfield Road over here. You're interested in recreation, that's a great time to bring up the first two items that were listed. And that's how I kind of look at it. Because it's about listening to, it's their money. They're going to spend it largely on what they see as priorities. And I appreciate that.
A lot of these grants are what Mark's working on really hard. Like, the Bark Park, that, like every project that he's working really hard on that we're pushing towards him, them are the ones that he is requesting. I think that's amazing. Good job. I don't have any other thoughts or any more ideas on it.
I thought, in the very least, it was useful to hear this list again.
Yeah.
Next thing.
Any other comments? We don't need to.
They've won a lot of road projects.
No, good job.
No, I agree. It's a good list.
It's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that. You're up. That finishes
It's your
item
turn.
G on our agenda. That brings us to item 12, extended public
There
comment.
you go.
Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to address the public, if you're here virtually through Zoom, please raise your hand by using the participants icon. If you're dialed in, press *9 to raise your hand to be recognized. And if you're in public, just stand up and speak, and we'll ask that everyone that's going to speak to the public state their name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at 10:12 p.m.
Thank you for,
Yeah, thanks.
It's always interesting. I almost forgot what I was doing. My name is Carl Hauser. I'm a resident of Clare. My position right now is I'm the Director of Veteran Services for Clare County, but the reason I'm here tonight is because I'm on the ballot for the general election for Board of Trustees for Mid-Michigan College. So I'm basically just putting a face with a name, because most of the times whenever I see the trustees, for Wayne State or whatever, I have no idea who they are, just vote. So I just wanted to introduce myself. Quick background, retired after 20 years in the Air Force. I moved up here about 6 years ago. I finished my bachelor's and master's degrees while I was on active duty. After I moved up here, I went back to school, got an associate's in criminal justice from MID, so I'm an alum as well. I say all that mainly just to emphasize my emphasis on education, because once you get it, they can't take it away. So I don't think MID's doing anything wrong necessarily. The 3 of the people that are running are incumbents, and I'm the only one that has opposition, so that's why it matters. Hey, support me. But it is an unpaid part-time volunteer position, so I'm not campaigning that hard. You won't see my name on any signs or anything, but I do have my profile with the Isabella County League of Women Voters on the Vote 411 page, so my information is on there as well. And my only other thing I would mention, my tie, and sorry Jeff, you heard this already, but at the Mount Pleasant meeting I was the other night, another tie to Mount Pleasant is I am involved with Friends of the Broadway. So I've done a couple of shows with them as well. So I don't have a real issue getting out speaking in public. Questions for me?
Would you just state your last name for me again?
Absolutely. Hauser. Hauser for the record.
And I'd like to say thank you for serving.
Thank you for your support. No questions?
I
Nobody
hate to
want-
put you through
Thank
that
you
meeting
for
just for this public service announcement of sorts, but I'm glad you're here to.
I know.
3.5 hours?
I appreciate your interest in Mid-Michigan Community College.
Yes.
I love that place.
Yeah, it's an asset. that, and honestly, when I first threw my hat in the ring, I don't want to beat this to death. We've been here long enough, sorry. I looked at us folks maybe on Clare County, and then suddenly my eyes open. Oh yeah, I need to stop down here, and I've been over to Gladwin, so all of Midge's catchment area, to at least again put a face to the name. Because the other positions, terms are running unopposed. They don't have to do anything. But now you know who I am.
Thank you.
Well, we do, and you might still take up all your time because you did wait 3.5 hours to do it.
Yes,
So
thank you so much.
you want to talk about cars or anything? I mean, you got a few minutes.
Not really.
Thank you.
What I would,
If
go
you
ahead.
don't mind me asking you a question, maybe this will.
Absolutely.
So why did you decide? I mean, you said education is important to you, but
Yes.
what was your deciding factor in deciding to serve your community in the way you're proposing?
Yep. Partly, it's a good question, and no one's asked me that, so thank you.
It's the most important question.
It is, and a few months ago there was a resignation from the board, so they were looking to appoint somebody. So I went and gave a presentation for that and did not get picked. And I said, oh, whatever. And the more I thought about it, I said, well, this is another way. This is just public service. You know, it's another way for me to give back to the community. I've never run for anything other than, and I should have mentioned this before, I was on the board for the Harrison Chamber of Commerce for 2 years, and I currently serve on our executive board for the Michigan Association of County Veterans Counselors. So I have some experience with this stuff. But what I've seen with a lot of organizations and the board, from kind of what I've understand, is some folks have been there since dirt was white. So maybe some new ideas, or at the end of it's a partial term, it's only 2 years. At the end of the term, I may decide that, yeah, this was a really bad idea because they're not going to change anything. So at least give it a shot. Yeah, that's really about it. But thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
sitting
you.
through
Thank
this
you.
tonight.
I'm going to escape.
This is a much longer meeting than is typical for us too, so.
These are like the meetings we had 4 years ago.
Well, to be fair, I'll
Marathons.
take my last 30 seconds. I've been around almost all the townships in Clare County now, a couple in Gladwin, Mount Pleasant as well. Every meeting, and you'll appreciate this, every meeting has the same basic format. None of them run the same way. So I would encourage anyone to go to another township occasionally, see how they run their things. Oh, well, that's good, that's bad, that's whatever. I'm not here to say it's good or bad, it's just different. Some of them are done in 15 minutes, some of them take as long as they take.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you
Brian's
much.
not chair, we have shorter meetings.
All good night. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm assuming we have no one
No.
in the virtual queue, seeing no other public.
Who's
We'll-
two participants?
Me and Hazen.
Oh, okay.
We will close public comment at 10:17 PM. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda, manager's comments. Mr. Stuhldreher.
Thank you. Just real briefly, reminder that the leadership luncheon is scheduled for October 26th. I think you have an email out on that. Just a reminder to let me know if you want to attend, and I'll RSVP on your behalf. And then a reminder that this Saturday is the 9th annual cleanup day. And if we have Trustee Bills down is going to join us that day, and encourage any of you that would like to help.
Be there. I didn't even know we had to sign up.
That's my intention. My intention is to be there.
Well, and I'm very grateful. I was hoping that that's what you would say,
Wasn't it hot last
What time does it go
because
from?
Little overcast
particularly
last year.
Trustee Hauk manages to bring a couple folks that, I mean, that's where the real muscle is. So I would hate to think that we weren't going to have him and his buddies.
It takes some muscle.
Oh, God.
Jeff, we need some muscle.
Mark, is it,
Cleanup
That's
day.
it.
do we get there at 7:38? What?
I suppose.
The door, it is from 8 to noon.
Yep.
And what you're doing is helping people get stuff out of their cars that is either going into the electronic recycling station, the metal station. We knew this year is a paper shred it. People want to clean out their old
Documents. Yeah, that's
10
great.
years worth of utility bills that some people keep. And then the
We can see this.
compactor, I call them garbage trucks, for the mattresses and the
Yeah.
old sofa or something.
But it's amazing how much will fit in one of those trucks.
I've seen him take
Oh.
15 mattresses, 2 couches, and
Everything
several
in this
chairs
building.
and keep on trucking.
We're there from 8 to noon, and any come and go. It's like a, open house cocktail party without the cocktails.
Okay, well, I plan on being there a little before 8 then.
We'll have a shirt for you. So that's all, thank you.
Thank you.
You bring me coffee.
Final board member comment, item 14 on our agenda. Trustee Bell.
None tonight this evening, or none this evening.
Clerk Cody? I'll be real brief. I just have to say, I drive down Remus here, or M20, or High Street, depending on which one I call it, where the sidewalks have been put in by largely the EDA. It just astounds me, the character transformation of that corridor. It looks like a different place than it did 4 months ago. It blows me away every day I drive it. And I can't imagine it doing anything but being an economic development tool, ultimately, besides beautification. I mean, if I was gonna open up a retail business or some other kind of business along there, that would draw me to it, because it looks cleaner. Just looks great. Anyways, just kudos to all the work that went in to make all that happen. Trustee Thering.
I am good, thank you.
Trustee Bills.
I like to echo those comments, and I also want to say that I see people walking on that new sidewalk every single time I pass it. So that's really cool. For me, I haven't really had the chance to really say I've done anything for a particular citizen until recently, but I did, and I feel good about it. So we have this drain in my subdivision that's been spouting a geyser for like 3 years now, and I think the old owner didn't know what to do or whatever. So anyway, I emailed Kim, and Kim told me to talk to the road commission, and I did. And I talked to Mr. Mogg over there, and by George, Miss Dig is over there marking stuff, and he's gonna fix it. So
Woohoo!
I feel good about it. I feel
Feels
like
good.
I'm a difference maker now. That's it.
Trustee Bills, you're always a difference maker.
Oh my God.
We got that. I just have, thank you for all the conversation tonight. Powerful conversation, it was great. This is what's awesome about this board, that we can talk direct to each other, eye to eye, make things happen. Manager, outstanding. And then, I did get a little report today. Maybe 35 days out on a pump truck, maybe. So, I'm holding Kim to this now. She gave me, I'm sorry, Kim, but excited for that. So just another report. Every 2 weeks, you are going to get one. I promise you that.
So we need the big scissors and the tape out of the basement.
Or
soon.
a big board with the days counting down.
I'm bringing a
Perfect.
bottle of
Big-
champagne
big-
to break over the bow.
Big red ribbon and scissors, yeah. No, we're excited, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Our business is done. Be happy to entertain any motions to adjourn.
Move to adjourn meeting.
Second.
Motion by Bills, support by Brown to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.